bear guilt forever. If one goes into Germany today, one finds very few people who are bowed down with the weight of the guilt of the concentration camps. And I think that if one goes into the United States now and explores the pile very thoroughly, one is going to find that the guilt is something that is felt only by the people who had some participation in it. You know, after all, I teach college students. Thousands of college students have gone under my hands. I talk to them. I want to keep abreast with them. They have no concept of guilt about Vietnam. I think Vietnam in their minds is in about the same category now as the Crusades or
what?
It's the idea that these things hang over for centuries. It really doesn't work that way. People have a remarkable capacity to abolish from their minds anything that makes them feel guilty.
Well, what was the president's attitude towards the correspondents in Vietnam? We know that he was under great pressure because of what they wrote and reported.
He was mad as hell at them. He thought that they'd been taken into camp by the communists. Also, I think he thought that there was a strange mixture here of what he regarded as the Eastern establishment and the communists, ganging up to prove that Lyndon Johnson was a no-good president. And he took all of this very personally.
Well, he was reportedly, and you would know about this, a great ranter and raver. And if he was, did he express himself strongly about this?
Like strongly. He expressed himself like Vesuvius blowing up and smothering Pompeii and Herculaneum. Johnson was a very stormy person. And when he blew up, he blew up. His explosions were monumental. And oh Lord, it became, that was another reason I was so happy to get out of the White House, let alone my feelings about Vietnam. I just got sick and tired of those explosions every day.
The quality of reporting from Vietnam, generally, what did you think of it?
It varied. You know, I think that if you examine the press as an institution, that it did a very poor job in Vietnam. But it's bound to, because the press is an institution, and it wasn't prepared for Vietnam. It was the same position as the rest of our society. Some individuals, I believe, did a tremendous job. I have a great deal of respect for Charlie Moore. I have a great deal of respect for Dave Halberstam, and there were probably others that I simply don't know. The press as a whole, I don't believe that the press made much of an impact in the United States in terms of Vietnam.
Wow.
I have heard the thesis that television, bringing it into the living room every night, changed American thinking, but I don't believe it.
You don't think, as some have said, that the press made us lose the war in Vietnam?
No, that's nonsense. In the first place, you notice that the correspondents I was talking about only had a relatively small audience. How many people read Charlie Moore in the New York Times? How many people read Dave Halberstam in Time magazine? Very, very few. What most of the American people read were the wire service accounts, which were very bloodless. And as far as the television bringing it into our living room, you have to remember something. I think that trivialized the war to some extent. You know, to have a scene of blood and carnage put in between one ad with a big argument over whether they should use a toothpaste or a gel to maintain peace in the family. Then you get a scene of blood and guts, and then you go and do a Tampax commercial. I don't think, I think that the impact of the press in Vietnam has been overly exaggerated. I think what happened is that the press changed, but I think it would have changed anyway. I think their whole society changed. I think Vietnam was just part of the whole social process where the United States blundered into this horrible mistake.
Earlier today, Fallout 4
He got senile in his old age, but he was still a smart man, though.
got a new update, and actually 2 of them. Unfortunately, things didn't quite go according to plan with the first update. The reason for this secondary update is Bethesda accidentally broke things. Again, the first update seemed to have changed the save game location for Fallout 4. Users on PlayStation and PC were reporting all of their saves missing, except oddly enough on PC, it was now using the Fallout 4 on GOG save game location, which is in a different spot than the Steam version. And even further, the creations menu, which is how you access mods, was also totally removed from the game, which is also a feature of the GOG version, coincidentally enough, and honestly probably a feature several people on PC would like to have removed. Thankfully, this was all an issue of locating your save games as opposed to your saves actually being deleted, so almost immediately after the first update, Bethesda
People panicked.
pushed out a smaller hotfix about an hour later that does seem to have fully resolved all of this. This does actually seem to be working.
Or you could have just
From all of the reports I could find
done
of
it
people
well the
losing
first
content,
time.
I could find many of them now updating their posts to have that content restored. So if you log into Fallout 4 and find that your save games are missing, make sure you grab that second update. And at this point, if you haven't updated your game at all, this will all likely download as just a singular update. But then of course, there are a variety of
Wow.
other things that the patch was actually intending to change. And if you're in consoles, pay attention. There's a mod limit increase coming. Xbox users will have up to 100 gigabytes of mod space, but you're about to lose your entire load order, so make sure you back things up appropriately. I'll talk more on how to do that a bit later in this video. The real critical fixes that many of you will feel
I don't care enough beyond this. There's so much good stuff. It's hard to pick. I get like choosing paralysis. Of Ash and Steel hit, huh?
What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions for Of Ash and Steel, a title which technically released yesterday, but I've had a bit longer than that thanks to a review key provided by, of course, the game's publisher, TinyBuild. However, despite all that, this is a first impressions, and I have played the game for about 35 hours or so, which is a little unusual, and we're going to get into the why of that, but I'm definitely not done with this title. But realistically, there's a lot to know. For starters, this game is very clearly inspired by things like Gothic in particular, and much like Gothic, if you are into that very specific sort of subsection of RPGs, I think you're probably going to love this. However, much like Gothic as well, it has, I would say, some jankier mechanics, some technical problems we're about to get into, and some other things that are going to hold it back from being, I would say, a widespread success, let's say. And yet, in spite of that, I still think it's worth playing. Not, however, before we touch on probably the most important part, because while I do enjoy this experience overall, it absolutely has to be mentioned that this game is buggy. Now, the sort of base full game price for this is $30 US, so it's not a particularly expensive title. It's also on a 20% launch discount, and while it certainly is buggy, I have yet to find anything actually game-breaking. But what do I mean? So, everything from animations, freezes, stutters, FPS dips, crashes to desktop, basically everything you could think of that isn't full-on game-breaking I have seen at this point, however. And when I go to review this in full, that's certainly going to be a big part of it. You add into that general bugginess a very sort of no hand-holding approach to the game, and my own decision to play the game on its hardest difficulty, and it's been a bit of slow going on my part. But what do I mean by no hand-holding? Well, you will eventually get a map, from what I understand, at the end of Act 1, except the thing is, without a map, you're pretty much flying blind while you try to complete pretty long quest chains in order to get to the point where you're like recruited into one of the factions, which is where you get the map, from what I understand. The thing there being that Much like Gothic, you can seemingly do much of the side content before that point, and the quest chains are long, and you're trying to figure out the island, and I imagine the first playthrough in particular is going to be what is brutal for people, with subsequent playthroughs being much faster once you know where everything is. So with that stuff out of the way, and up front first, I also want to mention that I'm honestly having a blast. I love this kind of thing. From the slow rise to power, the slow conquering of combat, having to figure out where you are, uncover the lore of what's happening, what is going on, really leads to a sense of very rewarding progression if you stick through it. However, that is, again, not going to be for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. From there, let's start at the beginning, though. So, another thing that may put people off, we play a set character. In particular, we are Tristan, the cartographer. Not, again, a very unusual thing. If you play Gothic-likes, they typically have a set character. Once you get to the big city, it is possible to find a barber who will change your hair and beard style for you, so there is some cosmetic stuff later, in addition to, of course, armor progression, just not right out of the gate. Tristan, our cartographer here, is being sent with an expedition of knights known as the Order of the Seven to one of the 7 islands that make up the archipelago that is this nation. However, unsurprisingly, given the nature of this video game, there are some problems along the way, and Tristan winds up being the sole survivor of an attack on these knights. Your job, now stranded on an island with no way to get off because thanks to volcanic activity and rumors of a civil war starting with the other islands, you are basically stuck here with no way to leave, and you have to pick up your weak, mangled little cartographer body and turn it into something worth using. And you certainly seem to be able to do that if you try hard enough, both through normal progression, like levels and things, but also by unlocking hidden abilities. I believe there's some magic later on, but not so much towards the beginning of the game. But in particular, you do something enough, you can unlock perks, like when you start the game, for instance, if you are sprinting, when you hit mud puddles or sticks on the ground, your character will fall over, and if you do that enough times, you unlock a perk that makes you immune to that, as an example. But another big part of it is, as with most games like Gothic, is the slow accumulation of power in general, because it's really hard to kill anything at first, so you need to do the quests you can, gaining experience, grabbing levels, raising some attributes, which lets you get access to better weapons and things like that. However, armor, while technically something you can upgrade, is a little more difficult to come by, and one of the reasons, as part of the main story especially, you'll have to join up with one of the factions who can offer you protection, because you'll find that after surviving the attack on the knights, those assassins aren't quite done yet when they find out that you're still alive, and you need the protection of somebody bigger than you. However, it doesn't stop there. In addition to the 2 factions you have to join one or the other on, you can also join a guild, of which there are 3: smugglers, bounty hunters, and grave diggers. What they do is pretty much in the name there. And that's a lot going on, but I do think it can get pretty immersive if you let it, in the sense that, without a map, especially at the beginning here, you are quite literally lost because you don't know where you are. Quest instructions can be a little frustratingly vague, however, I do think they could have done a better job of directing you to things, and I understand that's the point of this kind of thing. However, if you're going to go with a no map, no quest marker type of deal, even for a little while, you do need to give better directions, as far as I'm concerned. In fact, what I'm working on right now is trying to find a couple of things so I can advance the main story, which even for me is a little more frustrating than it is fun, frankly. And yet, in spite of that, as I mentioned, there's a really rewarding sense of progression once you do it, because just something like getting your first set of armor and out of these rags you find yourself in becomes this really big moment. And then when you start getting stats up there and using some weapons and being able to actually kill some things, you've actually made quite a bit of progress, really, even if it is a bit slow. And all of that says nothing of the world itself. There's a bunch of stuff to interact with here. The map is actually big, which is one of the things that makes the lack of a map or anything like that such a consequence, because there is a significant amount of stuff to sort of find and memorize the layout of, and with confusing directions it's even worse. But luckily that map is filled with content, all sorts of side quests, some mini games like a fist fighting one. You can even find and buy a dilapidated home that you can then fix up, which is worth doing because that gives you permanent upgrades. I'm actually almost done with that myself. All as you get to the bottom of the initial conflicts, like how all 3 of the guilds kind of hate each other, the back and forth between the 2 factions, the Order of the 7 Knights, as well as the Free Hunters, who have had some success here being free, as they are actually trying to fight off some of the blight which is going around, which is another of the island's problems, seemingly causing these undead to pop up. This game also plays into movement a fair bit. There's some jumping involved in acrobatics type of things where you have to scamper your way up things, and if you fall you'll probably die. Another reason to explore and meet all these people, however, however, is that leveling up and gaining attributes is not enough. You need to spend gold and have the required attributes in order to find a trainer to teach you how to pick up and use your skill points to actually acquire some basic knowledge about how to take care of yourself, survival, crafting. You can full-on craft a whole bunch of stuff if you invest into it. And next thing you know, what used to be a problem is now, in fact, very doable. And one of the things I like about these games is that often, just outside of the visuals of your upgrades and progression, it also even affects things like combat by straight up changing the way you wield your weapons and sort of really embracing the training and things that you've received. And so, to sort of leave off here for a first impressions as I continue to work on the review, broad strokes, I would simply say that Of Ash and Steel seems to understand and capture what is important about the types of games it is trying to emulate here, while also doing some fun stuff on its own. And if you like those types of experiences, I bet you'll enjoy this a lot. However, I do think it's also the type of experience to frustrate a fair few people as well, as you're pretty much flying completely blind in a lot of respects. Now, in terms of when I will be done with this in order to put out the full review, that is a little tricky. As I mentioned, it's a bit of slow going for me right now, and that is actually compounded by the fact that Thanksgiving is here in just a couple of days for the US, so I have some family obligations. However, the good news is I am positive that once I get done with my first playthrough, the rest of it should likely go very quickly once I learn where everything is. But altogether, it's really hard for me to say exactly when I'm going to be able to get this out there, but hopefully it won't take too long. But I do want to experience everything and see it for what it is. So with all of that said, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you're looking forward to the full review, but so far, having a blast, even if the game certainly does have some substantial problems like its technical state. But either way, let me know how you feel about it, especially if you've played it, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.
History doesn't repeat itself, but historians repeat each other. And I'm going to do precisely that with what I'm picking up on this morning. For Americans, wars usually begin when they get involved on a large scale and end when they leave, as was pointed out earlier this morning. In the case of Vietnam, in trying to understand the war, that simply does not work. You cannot begin to understand that war without understanding what happened between 1945 and 1954. Nothing looks the same. In the fall of 1945, I took my first teaching job in Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. I had just finished a PhD with a specialty in U.S. foreign policy and had taken a number of courses in East Asian and South Asia, India and Pakistan. We had no Southeast Asia program at UVA at that time, which says something too, I expect. Reasonably well informed and knew what the press was reporting and what I could find out about the Vietnam War from American sources at that time. The beginning of my education came, interestingly enough, from a student paper who, in the fall of '65 in a graduate seminar, who, using the few sources that were available, went back beginning about here in September 1945 and traced the first part of the war up into the mid-50s. And once you had seen that, nothing ever looked quite the same again. It was simply a very, very different war. Your understanding was completely changed. The other point this morning that I think is vital to start with is that the first war, in so many different ways, defines the contours of, to a considerable degree, determines the outcome of what the Vietnamese called the American War, which followed after. In short, this is not a war that lasted 65 to 73, but a 30-year war that spans 3 decades between, and you could date it back further, I suppose, if you wanted to quibble, September 2nd, 1945, and April 30th of 1975. The main result of the French War, of course, is that it does not settle the principal issues over which it was fought, which I hope to get to this morning. And one of those issues is the political unity of Vietnam. Vietnam as a single political entity. The other is Vietnam's independence from foreign influence. And by virtue of the fact that it doesn't solve these issues, then it creates the basis for the Second War, which you can date from 1959 or 61 or 65 or a number of different places. It also dictated the way the war would be fought. The Viet Minh concluded that the strategy they had used against the French might also work against another Western power, even one as powerful as the United States. The Americans, on the other hand, in assessing this war, as much as they assessed it, which was precious little, conveniently and casually blamed the French. Easy way out. They hadn't won a battle or war since Napoleon or whatever the cliche was. Blame the French. They had not been smart. They had not been aggressive. You'll see that later in film. That war, in their view, had been an anomaly. It was not worth studying. I did a survey of military journals from 55 to 65, 63 or 4. One article I found dealing with the First Indochina War. Only after the United States was bogged down in its own war in Vietnam in the 1960s would Americans then begin to look at the classic works of Bernard Fall, Hell in a Very Small Place, especially Street Without Joy, and try to understand what had happened during the First War. Now we're going to begin here, September 2nd, 1945, Ba Dinh Square, Ba Dinh District of Hanoi. And I think in this case, I think maybe 100 words or so can tell a better story than a single picture, to sort of reverse the old aphorism. And I'm quoting here from Vo Nguyen Giap, Ho's chief lieutenant and the mastermind of Dien Bien Phu. Hanoi, he recalled, was bedecked with red bunting, a world of flags, lanterns, and flowers. Fluttering red flags adorned the roofs, the trees, and the lakes. Streamers were hung across streets and roads bearing slogans in Vietnamese, French, English, Chinese, and Russian. Vietnam for the Vietnamese, down with French colonialism, independence or death, support the provisional government, Ho Chi Minh's government, support President Ho Chi Minh, welcome to the Allied missions. Shops and factories, big and small, were closed down. Markets were deserted. The whole city, old and young, men and women, took to the streets. Multicolored streams of people flowed to Ba Dinh Square from all directions. Workers in white shirts and blue trousers came in ranks full of strength and confidence. Hundreds of thousands of peasants came from the city suburbs. People's militiamen carried quarterstaffs, swords, or scimitars. Some even carried old-style bronze clubs and long-handled swords taken from the armories of temples. Among the women peasants in their festive dresses, some were clad in old-fashioned robes, yellow turbans, and bright green sashes. Most lively, Giap records, were the children. They marched in step with the whistle blow of their leaders singing revolutionary songs. Because of the crowds, Ho couldn't get to the stand until late, and interestingly, ironically, he arrived in an American automobile. He was introduced by Giap. His opening words will sound vaguely familiar. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This immortal statement, Ho goes on to say, appeared in the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America in 1776. In a broader sense, it means all the peoples on the earth are equal from birth. All the peoples have a right to live and to be happy and to be free. The Declaration of Rights and Man and the Citizen, made at the time of the French Revolution in 1791, also states, all men are born free and with equal rights and must always remain free and have equal rights. Ho followed a la Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Jefferson, as we used to call him in Charlottesville, with a long list of French sins comparable to the list Jefferson did of George III's sin, and concluded Vietnam has the right to enjoy freedom and independence, and in fact has become a free and independent country. The entire Vietnamese people are determined to mobilize all their physical and mental strength to sacrifice their lives and property in order to safeguard their freedom and independence. At this point, according to the stories, he asked if the people understood, and a million voices replied as one, yes. Appropriately, and again ironically at this point, P-38 Lockheed Lightning fighter planes, my favorite World War II aircraft, flew over the square in kind of celebration. So the first question, obviously, and I'm going to answer it in the short fashion because there's a lot to do in a very short time here, is why, given this scene, within a little over a year were Vietnam and the Viet Minh and France at war? And the answer is simply that Vietnamese, as this picture indicates and Ho's words suggest, wanted independence, and France, sort of not totally in character among the European powers, decided that such independence was unacceptable to it, to France. Now, another point to be suggested here early is that what is happening here in Ba Dinh Square is happening all over the world from 1945 into the 1970s. It's a process called decolonization. It's a process by which peoples in Asia and Africa and the Middle East who had been under colonial rule for anywhere from 50 to 100 or more years decide that the time has come to end this. It's an international phenomenon, probably the most important phenomenon in world history after 1945. The British made reluctantly, Churchill of course had said, I have not become the King's first minister to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire, and luckily he didn't have to because he was elected out of office in August of 1945. Maybe God was looking after him in that particular case. The French did not go along with it because of a lot of different reasons. They saw the empire as important to their economic well-being. They saw it as important to the integrity of what they call the French Union. France, of course, suffered maybe the greatest blow to its prestige of any Allied nations during the early stages of the war, and maybe trying to regain the empire was a way of sort of building itself back up and restoring national pride. As I've tried to record in America's Longest War, the situation in Vietnam is hopelessly confused from the moment of the Japanese surrender on. The bottom line is that there are these two opposites conflicting. They try to negotiate because neither one of them really is strong enough the French aren't strong enough to put down the rebellion. The rebellion isn't strong enough to throw the French out of Vietnam. And so they try to negotiate a settlement in 1946. They do negotiate an agreement. The short tale is that it simply doesn't work. It breaks down. Hostilities develop and come easily, and in November 1946, fighting breaks out in Hanoi. Thus begins a war that's going to last until the July 21st, 1954. Now this war breaks down. We historians have to break things down. That obscures all sorts of the complexities that were talked about in the first hour, but it helps to understand roughly into two phases. One from 1946 to late 1949, early 1950. The other from 1950 to 54. And basically, the first part of the war, 46 to 49 or 50, is a war between the Viet Minh, Ho's revolutionary organization, and France, a war of independence, a war against French colonialism. Both sides fight pretty much in line with their national traditions here. The Viet Minh, or Vietnam, has a long history. 1,000 years is sort of the boast of repelling foreign intruders, most notably China. And in any number of cases, one of the main ways that they combated China was through what would later become called guerrilla warfare, sort of passive resistance. And in fact, a 13th century Vietnamese general set forth very briefly the basic concept in a war that was soon to be fought against the fearsome Mongols, Kublai Khan and all of that. The enemy must fight his battles far from home for a long time. We must weaken him by drawing him into protracted campaigns. Once his initial dash is broken, it will be easier to destroy him. So the Viet Minh then retreat back into the countryside in 1946, concentrate on building a powerful political organization, on building resistance as widespread as possible, developing a guerrilla army, getting that army weapons and training, with the idea of not exposing themselves to French arms and French firepower. One of the wonderful slogans, each citizen is a combatant, each village a fortress. Those who have rifles will use their rifles. Those who have swords will use their swords. Those who have no swords will use spades, hoes, and sticks. It's even down to the basics, even more than Churchill in 1940. Ho put it another way: if the tiger pauses, the elephant will impale him on his mighty tusks, the elephant being France, but the tiger will not pause, he said, and the elephant will die of exhaustion and loss of blood. Now, the French had fought guerrilla wars before in North Africa, and they followed what is sort of the classic strategy, which is called the oil slick. And if I'm not mistaken, what General Petraeus introduced in Iraq in 2000, I'm having a hard time with the new century, you can tell. General Petraeus introduced is a variation of this sort of thing. You build a strong point in critical locations, and then you try to spread out. As oil spreads out, you put it down on the ground, you try to spread out and extend your control. They tried to use their firepower to best advantage. Their hope was to lure the Viet Minh into battle where they could use their firepower to best advantage. The problem for France was simply, among other things, was that they didn't have enough troops to make it work. The war, and there was growing political opposition at home. So round one, or phase one, ended in a bloody stalemate. One that was increasingly costly to France, who could less afford the price given its political dynamics than the Viet Minh. Phase two, first a question, I guess. What was the position of the United States in this first part of this war? And why, given its anti-colonial tradition, did the United States maintain neutrality in essentially a sort of a reactionary conflict? And this neutrality was very much weighted towards France. FDR, after all, had talked about the French. He had his real stereotypes of people. The Germans were tight-fisted. The French were horrible colonialists. I mean, of his Dutch ancestry, the Dutch were much worse, but somehow that escaped his notice. FDR spoke scathingly of the fact that the French had exploited Vietnam for 100 years and that the time for the empire to go was now. And early on, he talked about the possibility of a trusteeship under the United Nations. The idea would be that instead of the French coming back in after the war ended, an independent group would be created to help operate, to help govern Vietnam until the natives, as they were called in, were ready for independence. Now this tells you something, that FDR was on top of things in terms of what was happening with decolonization. He was way behind the power curve in terms of his estimation of the Vietnamese. Had very little knowledge of them, did not have any idea. In fact, one time he mentions 50 to 75 years before they would be ready to govern themselves. This was not what Ho had in mind in September 1945. By the time he died, his idea had been watered down, but partly because of British opposition, partly because opposition on the part of the U.S. military, who wanted bases in the Pacific and feared that trusteeship might get in the way of that. He had backed off all the way to the point of a trusteeship under French control, and that didn't really fool too many people. So the stage was sort of set. The United States did nothing to block France's return to Vietnam, and once France is there, U.S. neutrality under the Truman administration is tilted very distinctly towards France. The United States does not protest the French getting back into Vietnam, even makes available ships for them to bring troops to Vietnam. It provides Marshall Plan aid later on, which obviously provides funds which frees other funds to be used in fighting the war. Nobody in the U.S. government liked that. They had no idea the French could win, had no trust in their ability to manage this, but they would not do anything to stop it. And the reason here, interestingly, the one reason in a one-letter word is Europe. This is true pretty much all the way through to 1950. The United States was mainly concerned with Europe. France was a key player in Europe. The Cold War was taking form. If the United States pushed France too hard on the war in Vietnam, the fear was that the French government might collapse or it might shift to the left. There was even possibility the communists could take control of the government through elections. So we handled them very, very gently and provided limited aid while protesting only quietly and behind the scenes and effectively saying, please, please move in the direction of granting them independence, which the French were not disposed to do until they absolutely had to. Now the war changes dramatically in 1949 and 50. It becomes internationalized and it escalates dramatically. Fall of China to the communists, August 1949, a critical factor. The communists, Mao and his group, have some ties with the Viet Minh. They provide sanctuary, which means that Vietnamese troops that are under threat from China can retreat across the border. Forces can be trained across the border where they're safe from French fire. They begin to provide advisors, which for the Vietnamese, is a tough call. You have to be really careful. Chinese spend a lot of time in Vietnam, and you don't want them back for any length of time. The other impact that the fall of China has is politically in the United States. Some of you will remember the furor that occurred. We had seen China as a friend and ally under Chiang Kai-shek, maybe even a democracy that would be closely tied with the United States. And when Mao and his forces take over in August 1949, it has a huge, huge impact. Who lost China is sort of the political rallying cry, as if a country that large and distant from us had ever been ours to lose. But so important is the political upheaval that the Truman administration is under great pressure not to lose any more Asian territory to communism. Second major thing is the Korean War, beginning of the Korean War, June 1950. There are a whole lot of reasons for that. We don't have time to go into its fascinating revelations in documents these days, but suffice it to say that this war sort of brings the Cold War to Asia full scale and integrates Vietnam into America's Cold War strategies. It is seen as firm evidence that Stalin and the Kremlin are now set on world conquest and will use any means, including military means, to accomplish this. It is also seen in the light of the fall of China as a point where something has to be done. So in the aftermath of Korea, the United States, as you know, sends troops there. As you may not recall, placed the 7th Fleet between Taiwan and mainland China to keep the Chinese from attacking Taiwan or Chiang Kai-shek from attacking China. It worked both ways at this time. And finally, a vast expansion of military aid to France. Vast expansion of military aid to France. At this point, the assumptions that would guide U.S. policy in Vietnam for the next 20 years are fixed. Southeast Asia is crucial to U.S. Cold War strategy because of its sea lanes, its raw materials. Southeast Asia is threatened. Vietnam is crucial to Southeast Asia. You begin to find in 1949 and 50 the origins of the domino theory that Eisenhower publicly articulated in 1954. If Vietnam falls, then the next thing will be insular Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and all those areas, and we will have a major crisis on our hands. Can I switch? Where's my tech person? Yeah. So 1949 to 50, I think, are the crucial periods in a major reorientation of U.S. policy. This is a cartoon by Fred Seibel of the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Whoops, I still. Yeah. Yeah. You can see why I don't use this stuff much. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's what I hired you for. You can see this is the sort of mentality that led to a major commitment in Vietnam in 1950, the first major commitment. And of course, the bottom line is that by 1953-54, the United States was paying virtually 75 to 80% of the cost of that war.
What?
That is a 1950 cartoon. It would have been, I could probably give you a closer dose than that. It would be in the fall of 1950, summer or fall of 1950. Cy Bell was a cartoonist, for those of you who've been in Richmond, was a cartoonist going way, way back on Times-Dispatch. What time, where's Frog? Okay, all right, I'm gonna do some, a few words about the Franco-American partnership.
For some reason, I feel like I have to prepare for war.
Churchill
And I'm scared that there's old American biases that our generations just won't remember.
is supposed to have said.
And I get this sinking feeling we're going to find enemies the likes of which we've never seen if there's some new war. All the time I go creeping back through the fucking whispers of my fucking mind, trying to find some fucking thread out of the fucking maze or something with the Minotaur chasing me, having to do with this, where I'm like, is there some connection I myself haven't personally made about how the future may go? Is there something I can see in the world stage that nobody else can? Is there something in these back videos that hints in the past, from years ago, that helps me springboard the future? Because I don't know. Sometimes I think that basically conjecture is running our country. And if I were to just make suggestions, people might think they're good. It reminds me of Demony and Locke in Ender's Game. That's Ender's brother and sister, Peter and Valentine. And they end up saving the world while he's up there in the battle station learning how to defeat the buggers. They're down like below, waging kind of a net war where they're opposing right and left correspondence and stuff. I don't know if you guys remember Ender's Game very well. And all the time, I feel like I'm pretty good. I've trained how to do Ender's stuff, like how to fight the bugs and how to defeat humans and how to outthink humans and how to not be caught by humans and stuff like this. But I feel like I'm constantly losing the mental war, and if I don't know I wouldn't say enemy or my favorite song is Future Foe Scenarios by Silver Sun Pickups, and I just keep thinking that if I don't educate myself on future foe scenarios, and honestly, I don't trust the world, but what I'm actually scared of is that I do trust the world. And what I'm scared of is I trust the world forgetting what we've done to them. And now I'm kind of leaning back into the past, trying to remember what all America's done to the world. For instance, back France in the Indochina War.
There's only one thing.
And end up paying 80% of the cost of it.
Fighting,
which is just insane.
Without one thing worse than fighting.
And this is due to a theory that the president had. Was it Roosevelt? That if we didn't get this linchpin, it would all just crumble.
Balance. And that's fighting against.
And we would end up fighting World War III over communism.
That's pretty much revealed here, although I think by the 53, 54, both the French and Americans might have said, we'd rather be in here without the other one. The alliance was very difficult. Culturally, it was difficult. France, a declining power who had suffered great humiliation. The United States, a rising power, full of vitality, full of confidence, full of energy, full of self-esteem, and all of those things. The Americans had contempt for France's old-fashioned colonial attitudes. The French, of course, were trying to hang in there. Fundamental clash of aims. The French wanted to hold on to their empire in some form, preserve at least a measure of their control. from France's stand, and actually wanted France to continue to fight so that it would make Vietnam independent. Now, if you're a Frenchman, you know, that ain't going to make much sense to you. It simply doesn't follow. They differed over the way the war should be fought. The Americans wanted the French to take the aid they were given and get aggressive and go after the Viet Minh and round them up and find them and do the sort of meat grinder thing that we were doing in the latter stages of the Korean War. They complained repeatedly about the barbed wire Maginot Line mentality of the French. The beau geste, for those of you who remember the Gary Cooper movie years ago. A languid war fought on bankers' hours was the way the Americans regarded the way the French were fighting. The French insisted that they were not refighting World War II. This was a new kind of war. They didn't, in any event, they didn't have enough troops to fight the sort of war the Americans wanted. They disagreed over aid. French thought the United States didn't provide enough. The United States said, well, hell, you're not using what we're giving you right anyway. So this went on and on and on. A very difficult situation. I was going to do a little clip from a wonderful movie that I highly recommend to you. This is a case where Hollywood doesn't trivialize, I think. It's The Quiet American from 2003, I think it was, with Michael Caine and Brendan Fraser. And there's a wonderful scene in there where the cynical British journalist Michael Caine is dismissing all the enthusiasm and hoopla of the Americans and how they're going to bring freedom to Vietnam and all of that. And Fraser does a wonderful spin, which said, well, the French can't do this. They don't have the brains and they don't have the guts, and we're going to get it. We're going to do it. We're going to get it right. I recommend the movie. What I'm going to do is cut on straight to Dien Bien Phu, and let's look at film there for a few minutes and sort of the background of that, because it's a wonderful. There's fantastic film footage in here. What happens, of course, is that even with American aid and more American advice and a much escalated war in 1951, 52, 53, you still have a stalemate at another level. Give me just...
Something's happening. I mean, I know what it is. BRICS went BRICS. If you don't know what that means, Brazil, Russia, India, China, that's what BRICS means. It means Brazil, Russia, India, and China Alliance, or whatever the fuck they are. I don't even know what you call it. Yeah, I would say it's like, yeah, it's like an alliance. It's an unholy alliance, because it's not us. I wouldn't say it's unholy at all. Those countries are fucking wonderful. It's just that it's an unholy alliance to us, America, because we didn't do that. We fucked with the French. We fucked with the Vietnam. We fucked with Afghanistan. We fucked with Britain a bit. We fucked with Canada. We fucked with Mexico. We fucked with fucking, Greenland. We have not conducted ourselves well in the world stage. I wonder if it's time that the chickens come home to roost. We kind of generally conducted ourselves like kind of a backroom dealing, sort of backstabbing, bossy, bad boss. And there was times when our, superiority could dictate that was so. But the fact that we did not unite with three other colonies or three other entities the way that BRICS did. BRICS is like doing all kinds of trade with those different countries, and it was like a whole effort that they did. They actually tried to unite. And that's what scares me. All the time I feel like I need to learn the Indochina War. Korea, like Vietnam, World War II, all the time. I feel like I need to go back in the past and remember what the fuck happened because we didn't unite. That's the real problem. That, and it's scaring the shit out of me all the time in the back of my mind since I heard about BRICS. I'm like, they united, we didn't. Brazil, Russia, India, China. Remember when Russia steps on Ukraine, this does reflect badly on Brazil, India, and China, but they don't tell Russia what to do. And it's kind of like we're in a big poker hall and we're Batman. There's this hilarious episode, and I swear to God, this was about world politics stuff too. It was Alan. I think it was Alan Moore wrote the episode, if I remember. The guy who wrote Watchmen, right? He was a political guy, definitely was. And as I recall, there's this wonderful Batman the Animated Series episode where Batman's in a poker parlor and he's incognito and he's in disguise and he's like just one of the people playing the game. And he's there to listen in because there's something bad happening, like the commissioner's daughter's been kidnapped or something. I forget the fuck what it is. It's something really bad. And he's in there to spy on them to get some idea of what's all on their minds. And there's like Croc is sitting there. And Joker. No, was Joker in that one? I don't remember. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm getting the canon wrong, and I'm sorry. I got brain damage. I don't remember. It's like Croc and the Riddler was definitely there. Not the Riddler. The Two-Face, Croc. Two-Face was definitely there, and it was like Croc, and I think Croc was there, was one of them. And I forget who the other two are. Maybe it was Joker. I want to say it's Joker or something like that. But anyway, Batman's sitting there at the table with them, spying on them. And there's this terrible moment where they all realize who he is, and they all go fucking crazy Batman villain mode while he's across the table with them. And that's kind of how I feel with BRICS, in the respect that BRICS aren't coming for us. Honestly, I mean, Putin bends Trump over in the world stage all the time, and I say this constantly so that the young kids remember it, because that's not too good. You know, that's not good when Russia makes you your bitch or makes you their bitch, and that's not too good. That's what Trump let him do. And so now, and that may be because of this whole Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and we don't know, but it's not too good. So BRICS moves on, and they are thriving, and they are like, Brazil is out of their economic slump, if they ever were even in one. Russia is doing better, but they're not doing like any much better, and they're like bullying Ukraine, as we know. India is struggling because they've got so many people, and I'm not so sure they can take care of that many people, but we don't know. China has the same issue, but China's, about the same beautiful infrastructure as India is. So all of those countries are doing well, but see, the difference is they're like, we're in a big poker hall and we're Batman and we're sitting there trying to police the fucking world, which I can't fucking stand, but something about the American mythos is like, we have to play fucking Roy Rogers or fucking, Buck Rogers or or whatever it is, some cowboy or spaceman, fucking gung-ho space marine approach to like taking over the world or whatever. But the difference is we haven't been that good of a friend. We dropped nuclear bombs on our greatest debtor, which is Japan. We cross China all the fucking time, and we tariff them because Donald Trump is a fucking retard bunghole with no fucking idea how to diplomatically run a country whatsoever. And he set us back hundreds of years, and I don't care, I'll say it like that. It is exactly like that. So China, like fucking China is in BRICS, so is Russia and India and Brazil. And like, we don't have friends. We have people that we threatened. We have Canada, we threatened them. We have Mexico, we fucking threatened them. We have like, Australia likes us, I think, and doesn't really care what we do because we've never crossed them. I'm sure Canada likes us, but just doesn't really like us. They like us, but they don't trust us. And I feel like Greenland hates us probably because we keep talking about fucking taking them. Trump was an asshole. And so now, when you look around the world, what's left as friends? There's like all the God-speaking, English-speaking God-fearing, English-speaking countries, like the Christo-fascist countries, which are like Britain, Britain, America. I would say Canada fits in with that if they want to, but I hope they don't. And it's just, I hope they do. Excuse me. Canada is part of that. No, Canada is like an English-speaking, God-fearing country. Most of them. Not all of them. It's more of a melting pot than we are almost, but it's still sort of like that. And so I could see uniting the colonies, which is something that they talked about in Starfield, and I don't think it's a mistake, because when you hear about BRICS, you're like, well, what? But we don't have any friends. And so now I find myself digging backwards, looking at the Indochina War, trying to figure out how little friends we might actually have if we dissed fucking France in the Indochina War. We have no friends there. We dissed Afghanistan in the Middle East the last 20 fucking years. We have no friends there. Like Britain, I'm not sure they like us, because I'm not sure they think we care what happens to them. And I'm not sure that, I mean, we haven't acted much better than that. If you look at Tony Blair's relationship to George Bush Jr., you'll begin to understand that we're on shaky ground with Britain. We like them, but remember, we seceded from Britain. There's not necessarily a friend either. They're the people that we had to fight to get our fucking sovereignty from. I'm not sure you could truly call them friends. They're definitely friends. We love them. They're like our neighbors. We love them. But I mean, are they our friends? Because we did secede from them. It's the same thing with Japan. Japan fucking loves us. To a credit to their beautiful, beautiful country and their beautiful, beautiful society. A credit to them, because it's proof of what I always say about women or something like that. Women have a magical capacity for forgiveness. Japan's had a magical capacity for forgiveness in a really strong way, and we love them for this, and we love their culture. We watch their anime. We love the Japanese, motherfucker. Don't get it fucking twisted. We love the Japanese, but we did drop goddamn nuclear bombs on them without the public's permission. That's something I want the Japanese to understand when I fucking say it. Without the public's permission, we did drop bombs on fucking Japan. We have no real friends there. Plus, they're our greatest debtors. Trump just shoved the tariff up their fucking asses, and that's about how it feels for them. Honestly, it feels like somebody to drag them out to the desert and shove the cactus up their fucking ass. They're like, what? You're charging us to do business with us? We're a trade culture. What are you talking about? And we are too. We don't make anything. We trade for fucking everything, and we're a trade culture. We want to tariff our fucking greatest trade business partners. What the fuck is that, you fucking retard, Trump? Fucking retard. So anyways, and plus we drop bombs on these fucking people. You couldn't really say we have friends there. We have very, very wise acquaintances who understand the world problems and aren't dumb like us, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to kiss their ass like that, but it is kind of like that. And they became our one of two greatest debtors. Japan and China own our greatest debts. Trump constantly takes his fucking thumb and sticks it up their fucking butthole, like that South Park episode. For Steve, dedicated to Steve Irwin. I gotta take my finger and stick it up his bum. I gotta take my Trump constantly bumbles over there and is like, I'm gonna take my thumb and stick it up Putin's bum. I'm gonna take my fucking thumb, and I'm going to stick it up fucking China's bum. I'm gonna take my thumb and I'm going to stick it up Japan's bum. They're our greatest goddamn lenders. They're lenders. You understand? It's a honorable term in their culture. It used to be an honorable term in our culture until we did the Glass-Steagall repealment and made predator banking the fucking law of the fucking land. But they're not like that. They kept the yen the same. They're not fucking dirty. I mean, they have corruption just like we do, but they're not dirty like us, kind of. And so it's fucking stupid. Like, we don't really have friends there. China, I'm not sure they really like us. We constantly condemn them in the world press, and they know fucking Trump drummed up the xenophobia of the idiot ass alt-right in this country. And he's like, China, if you're China, the China virus and all this stupid ass shit. Fucking stupid ass shit. These are our greatest lenders. They owe our greatest debt. They own our greatest debt. We cannot treat them like this. And get back to the original point. These are not enemies. They're not fucking enemies. But they're not friends. They don't speak the same language, and they're not really there to benefit us. They're there to benefit them. We're here to benefit us. This is something all the world fucking diplomats can acknowledge. All the world's leadership can probably acknowledge too. Every country is sort of out for themselves unless they're in some greater alliance that they've got a greater responsibility for, some greater powers. They're in sovereign owe to, or whatever you want to call it. They're like they're in like in Dutch, and they owe, or they have responsibilities to, is what I'm trying to say. And so, like, I keep looking back at the world politics, being like, where are our friends? There's not too many. There's, like, the God-fearing fucking English-speaking countries left in the world that are like us, that fucking beat the fucking Bible and speak English. And it's like, you know, and everybody speaks English now, but it's like America, Canada. I want Mexico, but I don't think Trump does. It's fucking stupid. Half this country doesn't want Mexico, like they're not fucking valuable. Motherfucker, Mexico is just as valuable as us. So anyways, motherfuckers, it's just fucking racist. It drives me fucking crazy. Fucking shitty racists running our goddamn country in the ground. They can't lead the fucking country. I'll do it with a fucking camera. I'll do more in a single night than fucking Trump has in 2 fucking terms. So how's this? BRICS is a thing. It's Brazil, Russia, India, and China. We know that they did this. We know that they're like our greatest rivals in the world stage in some ways. They aren't, but they are. And like, and they're in that poker table in the Batman animated series where the 4 Batman villains are all working against him, and he's at the table spying and trying to figure out what's going on. And that's like a metaphor for the world fucking stage. And the problem is, Batman America looks around that table with fucking Riddler and fucking like Two-Face and fucking Croc, and they're not villains, but we painted them that way, and they don't like us because we painted them that way. It's fucking shitty. They don't, and Trump painted them that way. And so now I've been taught by my shit ass right-wing cocksucker leaders to xenophobically fear people, and I go digging back into the first Indochina War to remember whether France is friends or not, because I don't think we have too many fucking friends unless we grab some hands here and we say, I don't know why we were tariffing you, brother, and I don't know why we were talking about taking over Canada, brother. We really love you. Would you like to join the United Colonies? We see that BRICS is freaking out and fixing to take over the fucking world, and probably space too. Do you want that, brother? Do you want that, brother? And you can say that in English to the fucking hogs of the fucking world, and they'll be like, nah, Canada and Britain and America and Australia and New Zealand, all the God-fearing queens, bastard fucking kids, all the colonies of the English-speaking Breton, Saxon Empire, whatever the fuck you want to call it, like whatever it is, right? All of them can unite. We could have some bonus buddies too. We could have some bonus buddies too, like we could have Puerto Rico and all these other people that we already have. We have places like Hawaii and shit. We have all these other crazy things too, and we also could work with people like Mexico. And there's other people that like us in this world. We just don't know who they are till we ask. So it's sort of weird. And like, we could unite the colonies, but we don't ever talk about anything having to do with leading the country. It's only politics, child sex, or fucking non-disclosure agreements over cancellation policies over fucking hookers and underage children, sex, and weird shit that the politicians do. I know it's the world's fucking focus, but that's not so good. In the background, these people who are stronger and richer than us because they became friends and started working with each other are now fixing to take over the fucking world. Nobody else in America will say this, and it is ignorant. But I mean, I don't know how ignorant it is. It's a very easy concept I'm talking about. 4 of our greatest rivals just became friends, and now it's a 4v1. Do you understand? It's a fucking 4v1. And because Donald Trump, the greatest butthole since fucking Hitler, stuck his thumb up every single country's butthole that he possibly fucking could have, like the bumbling retard that he fucking is, he set us back with every single one of our fucking possible friends, except for what? Like Australia and New Zealand. Maybe Britain, if they're like, I don't know if they're game. Britain's always kind of game. I think they're kind of, Pink Floyd said that hanging on in quiet desperation is the English way, and I think that's actually a very accurate statement about Britain and stuff. I think they kind of hold on to some idea that all their colonies might actually love them still. And I do still love Britain. For one thing, they speak my fucking language. That's not true of BRICS. That's not true of a bunch of shit. That's not true of Africa. That's not true of of the Middle East. But but we tariff people and we don't help other people that need help. Britain is in trouble. Fucking Jimmy the Giant is fucking waging a war against poverty in Britain. I've been listening to every fucking video that he does, and fucking London is fucking burning, and we don't ever talk about it. We don't care. We don't care. Why are we uniting the colonies? Why did we let all of the Batman villains become friends and now they're in a big alliance and all their banks are connected and all their money is connected? And they're moving on. They're ready to go party and shit because they're having like the time of their fucking lives. I look around the room and I look at all the people who hate Trump. I think about how China doesn't like Trump. Fucking, Japan doesn't really like Trump. Nobody really likes fucking Trump. It's fucking stupid. And Trump is not America. I don't care what he says or tries to say. Trump is not fucking America. Remember, we are the melting pot. We are the world's child. I say this on my stream every time Trump does something fucking stupid. We are the world's child. What we do reflects on the entire world, and everything they do reflects on us. We have no special race here. There's no white people in power or anything like that. We have a melting motherfucking pot of every goddamn race known to man. And that is our fucking strength. That's Canada's strength. That's Australia's strength. That's fucking, that's oceanic strength. That's strength, motherfucker. That's strength. Being a melting pot is a fucking strength. It really is. Britain's a melting pot. France is a melting pot. Hey, France, you want to come join our fucking... Hey, French have always been able to speak English or whatever. Hey, France, you want to come join the United Colonies? Because, hey, we kind of like Paris. We kind of like London. We even kind of like Madrid, but I believe that's bricks. You understand? And so now it's like the rest of the fucking America seems to be fucking blind with their fucking head up their fucking retarded political ass like Donald Trump. And they have no idea what our enemies are doing when they could simply read the fucking headlines. That's all they have to do, but they won't do that. That implies that they read. I don't think these people do read. I think they get on in Twitter. Read headlines on Twitter so Elon can brainwash them. Like, I'm fucking done with these idiots. They'll drive us into the fucking ground. Both fucking sides. Without uniting the goddamn colonies, there's no real hope of ever being, like the number one world power ever again. And the only way you're ever going to become the number one world power is by being friends with everybody. It's not going to be through tariffs and war and bullshit. Fucking xenophobia, fucking fear, and not uniting the colonies or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, if we don't unite the colonies, and then a war starts, and then Britain beseeches the world, and they're like, you've always had friends in the crown, and we established your countries first, and we need your help now. We're in a battle to the death with some problem. And, like, they come to us, right? What if they take the head of the United Colonies? What if they take it? It should be fucking America. I'll speak like a fucking American who believes in America more than goddamn Trump. Why should somebody else, and it could be anybody, really. What if Canada does it? Canada has money. I mean, they don't have a lot of money, but Canada has money. They are a world power. What if Canada suddenly decides that they want control of the United Colonies? And that's the problems these are non-existent problems, but they should be problems because it implies that we get a gang. What do humans do? They gang up, right? We don't have a fucking gang. We don't have an ally in the world stage. This is because of Donald Trump and the shit-ass Republicans who fucked up the world stage for the last goddamn 25 years. The fault lies with them. The Democrats went right along, trips and daisies, and pushing up daisies, and pushing little daisies, and make them come up. As the Democrats go right along, spread it for the whole world, and don't tell them no. And now they've set us back 500 years in our fucking world politics and all this stupid ass shit. I go running back looking at the first Indochina War, trying to remember what our relations are with fucking France because of Vietnam, because neither one is technically really a friend. None of them are really a friend. So every single one now, I'm trying to remember what our beef is with them, what we did to them. Did we sow a fucking coup in their fucking country? Did we get caught in a forever war there for 20 years like Afghanistan or Vietnam? Like, it just goes on like this, or fucking, whatever it is. World War II even. World War I. And it's like, you know, and I look back and I'm like, I look for friends here across the table of the Batman poker game where there's like 4 world powers leering their crazy two faces at us and speaking languages we don't understand, and they're wheeling and dealing 4 countries strong, you know, and their economies are mixed and they're trading with only each other as opposed to us, and they don't give a shit about tariffs. They're not financially weak about us, like us. They're not I mean, some of them are financially weak, especially like Russia, I would say, but they're not weak people. They've been through this for hundreds of thousands of years. They've been playing Game of Thrones for as long as the concept has existed, essentially, and they're not fucking bad at it. We treat them like they're bad at it, and then Putin bends over Trump without even saying a goddamn word. Have we even got Putin on a real fucking statement or something? Putin doesn't even say anything. He just smiles and moves his hand up Trump's fucking ass, and Trump just spews his bullshit. It's fucking stupid. So now, what do? I don't think uniting the colonies works. I'm not sure any of them like us anymore. I think one of the reasons Trump was retardedly threatening Canada is to spoil whatever fucking friendship we possibly have with them. It's a death cult. Took over our government. And they're torching all the bridges that we built over the last 300 fucking years that this country has been alive, 200 years. And it's just, you know, it's frankly fucking sad. Nobody else will speak about it passionately, or that they even might not even like know the facts. I'm not sure they know the facts.
So just a minute, and then let's start it. You still have a stalemate at another level.
I go looking back at the Indochina War for French fucking Americo fucking politics and shit, because I don't know, but I know the solution to this coming problem is friendship. It's not fucking getting scared, xenophobically looking around the card table, seeing only enemies and deciding you're gonna fucking, you know, deciding that you're just gonna go all in and slaughter all 10 of them somehow. That's not how this is gonna fucking work. We gotta be like, yo, are you in this hand or whatever, to like Canada and like, you know, Britain, and they're like, yeah, no, we're fucked and we're out of this hand, man. And it's good that we can talk to each other, huh? We all speak English and stuff, and they're like, yeah. These guys across the table, they're all speaking Brazilian, what is that, Portuguese or whatever, Russian, Chinese, or fucking, I don't know, like all types of fucking languages, and we're like, we have no idea what they're talking about with each other over there, because they're friends and we're not. And Britain looks at us and they're like, you're not in any alliance with us, and Canada looks at us, and Australia looks at us, and they're sitting at the card table too, but they're like, we don't have an alliance, we don't have any friends. That's what America says. They're like, we don't have any fucking friends. It's so dumb. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I made a new friend today. Has America done that in the last 25 years? I made a new friend today. Just today. Did America do that in the last 25 years? We threatened a lot of people and went to war with a lot of people. But I don't know, friends? Did we act friendly with anybody? I guess we did. We sent aid to Israel. We send a lot of aid to everybody, and we are friendly in that respect, and we could look for friends in interesting places and perhaps find them, but not as some idiot who's terrified of every other world culture except his own, xenophobically hides in his White Palace like Louis XIV, builds his ballroom and destroys France. I'm sorry, America.
And it's at this point that the French launch a daring and what...
I mean, shall we do the oversimplified again? Like, the oversimplified of Louis XIV is exactly Trump's story. It's so fucking dumb how close it is. You're a fat luxury... yeah, I remember this one. This one's so funny. Yeah, the French Revolution oversimplified, right?
This video was
You're a
made
fat, uncultured boy. And that's Trump. It's stupid. Yep, go.
Was made possible by NordVPN. Get protected by clicking the link below and get an amazing 75% off. That's only $2.99 per month with an additional month free for a limited time. Also, new French Revolution merch available now in the store, including King Louis and Marie Antoinette character pins, complete with detachable heads, just like the real thing.
Just like the real thing.
So I said to the Marquis de la Fufayette, what do you think I am? Some dirty peasant? I've never worked a day in my life.
True story. Exact quote.
Wow, that Marie Antoinette sure is pretty. Sure is. Wouldn't want to be Prince Louis then. That's going to be a lot of responsibility when he becomes king, especially since France is in financial ruin. Quite. Thank you one and all for attending the royal marriage of my grandson, the future King of France, to the Archduchess of Austria. Now for the very awkward yet historically accurate part of the ceremony, where we all watch him get into bed together.
Oh, this poor lady's like, I just got raped in front of 300 people. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with French people? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Britain did this. Britain did this. Remember Prima Noctis? What's wrong with Christian people? They always want to watch you fuck on your wedding night. What the hell is that? What's with Christians, man?
All right. Now
that look on her face. She's like, this is rape somehow, but nobody actually stuck it in me that was unwilling or whatever. Fucking weird rich people.
Now that's out of the way. Let's leave the royal couple to it.
Yeah, with your Prima Noctis, you better give us a boy.
Better give us an heir, you
And it better be male.
fat, ill-bred boy.
You fat ill-bred boy.
Nighty-night.
Yeah, and this shit happened too. And then he got all stigma'd.
It's gonna be a lot of responsibility. France is
You have to give us a son or you're not a real king.
in financial ruin. You fat, ill-bred boy.
But what if he's gay and he blows Bubba? Come on.
Wait. Quite. That's gonna be a lot of responsibility. France is in financial ruin.
America's in financial ruin. It's a lot of pressure. You better give us another worthy Republican runner-up. They can't. They can't.
Oh, great. He's a frickin' weirdo. France, the most prosperous, cultured, and beautiful nation in the world, as it had been for centuries. An exquisite social culture, with the king and the upper classes throwing crazy parties every night, enjoying high living and fine dining. Who cares that they were only able to do so off the backs of the hard-working, starving poor? What are they gonna do? Revolt? They're only 80% of the population. No.
That's like America.
Life in
Except we're 99% of the population.
France
The
is
American public.
great. What's that, France? You want to go to war with Britain and increase your power? Go
But the 1% fucks with us constantly.
for it, little buddy. You do you. And you lost. Now you're in severe financial debt. We have no money. What do we do? Should we stop partying? Heck no. Party harder. That's okay. The peasantry will pick up the slack. They were created
And
by...
there was like cocaine and all types of opium back then and all kinds of drugs and shit. They were running like full-blown raves.
God to do all the work, and you were created to reap all the benefits and party
Some of the
hard.
music's really good.
That's just how society works, and we've all just accepted it for centuries. Why? Why what? Why do the nobility get to be all rich and stuff? Just because they were
Because we're
born
liberal and we're rich.
into
And we
it?
can just do what
and
we
the rest
want.
of us schmucks just have to accept that? Hell, why do we even need a
kidding.
king? Who decided that? It all just seems very unfair and unequal, and I, for one, am starting to question it. Wow, that's very enlightened of you. And so began the Age of Enlightenment. Great philosophical thinkers across France and beyond began to question whether this beautiful nation was really all that beautiful after all. Hey, Prince Louis, bad news. Your grandpa died of smallpox this morning, which means, good news, you're now the king. So just to sum up, France is in severe financial debt, and the angry populace are beginning to question how necessary you are. But hey, I believe in you, champ. You got this. Maybe.
Maybe.
Oh no!
Oh,
Prince
no.
Louis Capet became King Louis XVI in May 1774. He was a notoriously weak man, and he knew it. He barely had the
Man, he
wisdom to
knew
rule
it.
a nation, never mind one in crisis, and he was easily manipulated by those around him. One of his first acts was to try to get revenge on the British by financing their American colony's revolution. Hey, we're an independent nation now. That was real swell of you, Louis. Couldn't have done it without you. Glad I could help. So hey, about all that money we lent you, when can we get that back? Yep, you're a great guy. I'll never forget what you've done for us. Real glad I could help, friend, but about that money, gotta go now, chum. Best of luck to you. No. And now France was in even more debt. France's poor, suffering under the strain of economic ruin, watched as the nobility continued to live as though nothing was wrong. In particular, they grew increasingly disdainful of the Queen, Marie Antoinette, as she continued to spend all of France's money on her own luxurious lifestyle and fashion. While the peasants were breaking their backs in the fields, she was walking around like, hey, my hair is about. I'm not making that up. Her hair really was about. And her lavish spending earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. And speaking of the Queen, there was also a long-standing scandal around the fact that the king took a very long time to
South Park really tore into Melania, or Melania. It's Melania's daughter. I can't even keep all the fucking names straight, but his current wife, right? Or did she divorce him? I don't know. But anyways, South Park really tore into her. They depicted her as like the ring lady from the movie The Ring, where she's like this crazy horror movie villain that dresses in all black and follows him around wherever he goes with like sunglasses and all black like a crypt keeper. And they really played up on it. And they're like, what if she actually is like a horror movie, like a horror movie like premise. And it's weird, and she does follow him around kind of like that, and I think the public's increasingly starting to dislike her.
Winker, and the working classes of Paris began ridiculing the royal couple with lewd
And they keep building ballrooms and stuff like that, which is just never too good to tell the working public.
pamphlets depicting the Queen.
You tell them that when they're drunk on like New Year's Eve, and also we got a plan to do a ballroom in the White House. Have a nice day. Everybody's drunk or something, right? But no, these guys are like in the middle of goddamn, I don't know, when was this? It was like November. We're just knocking down half the White House to build a ballroom. Nobody was drunk. No, it wasn't even like a holiday, really. There was nothing really to distract us at all. Just this idea that Louis XIV is building a ballroom and didn't ask our permission first.
As a court thought, and the king as a wuss, unable to fulfill his marital duty. Respect for the monarchy was at an all-time low, as France's finances were spiraling out of control. And the king and his aides really only had one solution to the crisis. Tax the poor. Tax the poor. We could do a sexy calendar shoot. Tax the poor. And so it was. The poor, who were already struggling to make ends meet, found themselves being taxed from every direction. Hey, I'm the royal tax collector. Looks like you've yet to pay your income tax, head tax. By the way, how many windows you got in that house of yours? 3? Oof, yep, there's gonna be a tax for that. Hey, your local priest here, have you paid your church tithe yet? Well, at least this one is going to the good work of God. Sure. God. I think this year, God wants me to buy a new swimming pool. Hey, private tax collector here. Oh, and I brought some goons with me. Just a few quick questions.
I brought some goons with me.
Salt did you buy this year? About 7 kilos, I think? Yep. Okay, there's gonna be a tax for that. Oh, what's that over there? And that's extra salt I held over from last year, so I wouldn't have to buy as much this year. Oh, yeah, there's a tax for that. And what are you doing with all this salt? Well, obviously cooking. On the table. Yep. And preserving fish and meat. Oh no. Yep. And there's a tax for that. Hey, how old is he? He's 9. And so he's purchased his required amount of salt for this year, right? What? No, he's 9. Uh-oh. Sorry, little Timmy. Looks like I'm gonna have to tax you for that.
Tears. Salt. There's a tax for that.
Yep. Salty. There's gonna be a tax for that. And that's not all. A huge portion of the peasants' harvest had to be given up, and there was also the labor tax.
That's a good analogy for what's happening to us.
Days for their local lord without pay. Obviously, people weren't too happy with these taxation policies, and the aggressive nature of these private tax farmers sometimes even escalated to violence. In particular, though, the people really hated how inconsistent the taxation rules were across the nation, and also the fact that the first 2 estates often had to pay very little, if any tax at all. And so, the anger continued to grow. France had a population that was just about ready to explode. What could push them over the edge? How about a touch of natural disasters? A series of harsh summers and winters left the peasants' harvests in ruin, meaning they had no food or money, and the cost of bread skyrocketed. Of course, the upper classes had massive stocks of grain and wheat, so they were virtually untouched by this new crisis. But now the poor really were starving, and they began to riot. Women took to the streets. Bakeries were raided.
We haven't reached this point yet, but we're headed for this point. Where when we go in the grocery store and we see $20 for a loaf of bread, we'll just storm the Bastille.
left the peasants' harvests in ruin.
Yeah, all it takes is like a dust bowl is what happened like a century ago. Why not again? I don't really see why not. We have stuff like Katrina all the time, fires and stuff like that. If something bad happens to our crops because of some dumb thing,
Meaning they had no food or money,
and bread goes to $20, we'll just we'll torch DC.
cost of bread skyrocketed. Of course, the upper classes had massive stocks of grain and wheat, so they were virtually untouched.
And we see Trump eating in his ballroom like 2 years from now. And we're like, oh my god, dude, it's like $35 for a meal. And you're like sipping champagne in a ballroom right now. And we just, January 6th again. This time we come with pitchforks and torches.
By this new crisis. But now the poor really were starving, and they began to riot.
I mean, I wasn't kidding about pitchforks and torches. That's what happens when this inevitably happens. And the worst part about all of this inevitably happens in almost every country over and 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 over. It hasn't happened here. This is the first time because we're only 300 years old. Every other country has gone through this 50,000 times or something, and it's like a Wednesday for them. They're like, oh, the aristocracy got greedy again, and now we got to storm the Bastille or whatever, and it sucks. But I mean, all the world's culture is used to that. We're not. We're going to sit there and do nothing for years and years and years and years while the Louis XIV stuffs himself fat off the fat of the fucking land and makes his little ballrooms in his fucking brain for nobody.
Took to the streets. Bakeries were raided, and bakers suspected of keeping bread for themselves were sometimes even hanged.
Yeah, and at that point, you got any food? If you're holding food, we'll kill you. We're your fellow Americans. You have to share.
Wow.
And it'll be a forced socialism. It'll be like, no, the food in the grocery store is no longer for sale. It goes for anybody who's down there who needs it or whatever. And we start having like the armed guards and all the National Guard come in and like guard the food stores and stuff. And that's when socialism becomes forced because the American public will fucking torch and pitchfork DC if the meals become $35. And nobody can afford it. Like the public will torch and pitchfork DC. That was supposedly what January 6th was gonna be. But I mean, that was far more political. But I mean, that's why my side was there. My side was in January 6th too, the leftists. We were there to see if maybe we could topple the current power structure and actually get some fairness for once in our lifetimes, as opposed to serfdom and poverty and rent that's $2,000 and food that's $35 a meal or whatever. We deserve better than that. We work hard. I worked hard. Not all my life, but I worked a lot in my life. More than a lot of people. And it's called Social Security. We used to have it till these thieves got their fucking hands in the tills. And I want their hands out of the till. That's the public's money. That's the Commonwealth. They aren't spending it right. We looked into the math of how much money it is to actually send like $3,000 to every single American, and it was like a fucking, like, what was it? It was like $8 trillion or something like that. And I realized that it was just a lie. It's a lie to try and buy our love, to keep him in term, to try to keep him in office. Just a full-blown lie. But I mean, they don't have $8 trillion to give us all $3,000 each. They gave that money to people like Israel. Russia, I'm sorry, not Russia, but Ukraine. They also didn't manage the money or the economics or the inflation at all. So there's no real spendable money. Which isn't too good, when we're facing so many crises.
This is really getting out of control. Your Majesty, we need some decisive action. You need to step up and lead us. What will you do? Okay, I've got this. I know. I'll summon the Estates General, and they'll decide what to do. You really are a fat, ill-bred boy. The Estates General was the closest thing France had to a government, apart from the king. It was a purely advisory body and was rarely summoned. In fact, it hadn't been summoned for 175 years prior to this. But with France in a severe crisis, the king felt the time was right to call on the government to help. The Estates General was made up of representatives from the three estates, that is, the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. The first order of business is regarding the clergy and nobility. You all get brand new Porsches. You get a Porsche, and you get a Porsche, and you get a Porsche. Everybody gets a Porsche.
Except the public.
And now into the second order of business. France is completely out of money. Like, it's never been this bad before. Anyone got any ideas? How about we all get Lamborghinis next time? The king decided that
I hate rich people.
in order to make a decision, they had to come up with a voting system. Okay, the clergy. You have a population of 130,000, so you'll get 1 vote. The nobility. You have a population of 350,000, so you'll also get 1 vote. And the third estate. You have a population of 27 million people and make up 98% of the population. Very impressive. You'll get
1 vote.
1 vote. The third estate were obviously pretty unhappy with this system because they kept on fighting.
I love all the angry fucking South Park people. Yeah, fuck the fucking rich, fuck the 1%.
That this
We're
would
standing around in our wigs and our fucking gay ass like aristocracy stuff, trying to pretend we're rich like them. We're all like trying to be bougie and shit. We're like, what the fuck? All this clothes we bought didn't get us anything at all. Fuck these assholes. Now we're starving to death. Let's take their money with pitchforks and torches.
We propose to raise taxes on the third estate.
The third estate proposes that we get 2 votes so we can outvote you.
All in favor? All opposed?
Us, all 90 million of us.
2 to 1. Taxes
Fuck
will be
you
raised
guys.
on the third estate. We propose a motion that says the first 2
If you do that, we'll fucking kill you.
estates are a bunch of poo-poo heads. All in favor?
Yeah.
All opposed? 2 to 1. It's official. We are not poo-poo heads. The third
Yes, you
estate
are.
realized that any attempt at reform would be outvoted by the
You can see him you can see the cogs moving in his drunk, middle-class mind, and he's exhausted because he's got 4 kids and they're all starving because the piece of shit rich people have been stealing. And he's pissed off and he's drunk and he's tired. We're all tired. We're like boomers and we're exhausted and they've been stealing from us. And so we have this look on our fucking faces. You can see this look on every American's male's face right now. It's like, motherfucker, what's going on?
upper estates. And they thought that was kind of
There it
lame.
is. It's like, yeah, fuck you guys. Thumbs down.
So they decided that since
Whack.
they were 98% of the population, they could go off to form their own
We could just burn them or make our own country.
government,
Yeah.
make their own laws, and take
Yeah, fuck it. The aristocracy can all go fuck each other. They can live in gay land.
over the running of the country. And so
With their wigs and their fucking peacocks and their like butt cocaine parties or whatever. They can just go live in gay land or whatever. And I don't mean that as some homophobic slur. I mean that's how rich people live. They live like that.
the National Assembly
Let them go live somewhere by their freak selves, and I think they would do a lot better.
was born. The third
They can
estate
serve themselves, you know.
was now in control, and there was nothing the king could do.
They're always wearing wigs and powdering their fucking faces and going to parties and shit, sipping Cristal and champagne, talking about being bougie and shit. Fuck that stupid ass shit. Fuck bougie people.
To stop. Haha! I've locked you all out of your building. What are you gonna do about it? We'll
Burn you with pitchforks and torches,
probably go find a different building that isn't locked.
and we'll just go in. Like January 6th. Yeah. Do it now. Here it comes.
Oh no! The National
Oh,
Assembly
no.
did find another unlocked building just down the road, an indoor tennis court. We're on the 20th.
All right, we elect these fucking. We elected these elected shitheads are no longer elected shitheads. We're putting Bob in charge because he seems to cry the most when America's hurt the most, and Bob cares about us the most. It's obvious. You can see from the tears on his face as these rich people fuck us all to death. We elected. Any elected official isn't elected anymore. We have our own power now. We're gonna show up down there in the fucking Nancy Pelosi's office, but this time we're not taking a shit. We're just Nancy Pelosi now.
of June 1789.
And that's what America does need to do. That's what always happens in all the Russias and the Chinas of the world and all their dynasties, all their Romanovs and all this stupid ass shit. Some rich people take too much money. We come in there and storm the Bastille, chop their fucking heads off or banish them. And then we take all that money back. Usually they've given it to the church for all the child molestation and fucking wife cheating that they've done. And we take that shit back from the church. If the church owns like 95% of the land in France or America or whatever, we just take that shit back. The church shouldn't own anything but a church.
All took the 10.
But that's what happened in France for some stupid ass reason. All these fucking Louis XIV fucking party animals and shit, just like Elon and shit that are all high on K and shit like this. They kept having 15 kids, sound familiar? With like all these different partners and shit, and eventually their court started to kind of actually burn them for this and talk about them and kind of denigrate them if they did shit like this. So, you know, but they were also a very loose culture, so it's sort of like weird, like after a while they were considered so like morally repugnant that the public hated them. They were considered like these butt sex thieves that sat around and just taxed everybody and lived off the fat of the land and shit. And that's kind of what we need to come to with our current situation. The rich people, they built this system on credit and stealing and like intrinsic value that they set, not us. And like your credit rating is a good example of that. And like that stuff, it's not too good for the public. God damn it, Kitty, you're sitting on my keyboard. Stop.
Pledging to continue meeting until the king finally gave in to their demands for more equality and economic reform.
Damn,
this
Kitty.
new National Assembly included many of the most educated members of the Third Estate, including two young lawyers by the names of Maximilien
Don't scratch my
Robespierre
belly.
and
Don't
Georges
scratch it.
Danton. Some members of the first two estates even joined their cause.
scratch
Some
it.
of these
Don't
men
scratch
formed
it.
a radical new political party called the Jacobin Club and quickly became leading
It's up from
figures.
under.
While many members
up
of the
from
Third
under.
Estate
Yes.
simply wanted more equality, a growing number in this Jacobin faction would begin calling for something even crazier, the removal of the king entirely. And this is where fear began to take hold. With such a volatile situation developing, everyone was
And
afraid
they never
of
talk about this part of the revolution, which is always so scary. Who steps in after we behead Trump? That's what's so scary about it. We get angry too. We're like, if it's not us, who is it? Who is it?
Something.
We need leadership, but we don't have the time to do it. We got wives and children and family and problems and wars and stuff. We can't run the country and be middle-class peasants at the same time. We need leadership, right? So we're like, who's gonna get the crown after we chop off fucking Trump's head or whatever?
The king feared his position was under threat.
I don't mean that literally. It's just like a Louis XIV gag. Like, you know, that's what happened to him. They stormed the Bastille. I think they banished him, but they threatened to chop his head off with a fucking guillotine.
Called in the military to take position around Paris.
That was another thing. The guillotine was this terrible thing, and the guillotine was this. It's okay. The modern guillotine now is Jeffrey Epstein. It's like this accusation that you're evil and the church doesn't like you and you can't run our country anymore. So now we're gonna chop your fucking head off in public because you're a witch. And it happened all the time in France. And that's kind of what we do now. It's witch hunt politics where it's like, oh, he's guilty of child molestation. But they all buy underage hookers. Everybody buy. I don't do it. But I mean, like, all these people buy, like, underage hookers. I swear to God they do, or it wouldn't exist.
The Third Estate heard rumor of the gathering military force, and they feared the king was planning to round them up. And
I think there's plenty of teenage hookers willing to sell them the product. That's another thing. Should it even be illegal? It's kind of crazy. It like should be because it's children, but I'm talking about like, I don't know, those prostitution charges twists and twists and twists, just like the drug charges. It twists and twists and twists our culture that does engage willingly in both prostitution, drug intake, and drug whatever you call it, like in drug dealing. Like in a culture that's obsessed with being a hooker or being a drug dealer or an addict, like, you know, those three things aren't really too scary for the American public right now. They're not, I mean, they are scary. We get judged for it, but they are things that the American public does a lot. To make it illegal is just a war on the poor and a war on the public. Why are those things illegal? I'm not saying that they've ever been moral. I'm saying putting them in jail doesn't fucking solve it. That's not gonna fucking solve it. Then they're desperate. They can't get a job. They're a felon. And they get out there and they deal drugs again or do crime or sell their bodies. So like criminalizing what they do to get out of poverty isn't gonna get them out of poverty, you know? And they're gonna do it anyways.
Arrest them. Maybe he'd even execute them.
They do it anyways. They've dealt drugs, been high, been an addict, or sold their bodies since the dawn of man. Why would you illegalize that? That's insane. That's like throwing people in jail for masturbating or picking their nose or I don't know, fucking sneezing or something. It's dumb. It's like I don't know, people engage in prostitution, they engage in drugs. To legalize those things is just a war on the third estate.
Also didn't help that the king had just dismissed France's
Who does the most drugs and fucking? The third estate, the public, right? They want to say half of that's illegal. Why? Because they want to tax you and throw you in jail all the time. Fucking dumb when we all love to eat. Like, watch a NASCAR DAG concert or whatever where they all talk about eating ass. And you're going to understand that there's not a lot of compunction when it comes to being drunk, high, or butt sex in this country, or even prostitution, really, I don't think. So it's like there's not a lot of shame around it, and there's not a lot of reluctance, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So like illegalizing it just causes the jails in the land to be completely full. And that's a serious problem in our country. It's as if we don't need Vietnam Wars anymore. All of our young men go to jail.
popular finance minister who had been trying to make reforms himself. It seemed the king was done
Building a prison just for me.
negotiating. Fear, left unchecked, often boils over into anger.
Yeah, we have
And
fear. We have fear of who will take Trump's place if we chop off his head. We have like anger that he took it this far. We are pissed off because he tried to cut like completely shut off the faucet when it's our water in the first fucking place. They don't ever get to decide that. That's our water, motherfucker. The only reason you're there is so that so that you don't work. You just make sure that our interests are taken care of. And that takes time and effort, and that's what your job is. But instead, you turn off the faucet, and we get furious, and we get into pitchforking and torch you.
anger detonates
That's
with
how this ended too, with pitchforks and torches.
violence. The angry people of Paris, after centuries of cruel inequality.
Yeah, fuck
harsh
that. It hasn't
oppression,
been centuries for us. It's only been since 1963 or something like that. Forced poverty and deprivation. Yeah, I'd say it was about 63, 64 or so around there, about JFK or so. Yeah, right around 64, the American dream had not died, it had just morphed. And then with the LaBianca murders, Sharon Tate, the American dream did die, which is that we could all hang around in this country, and as long as you didn't wrong anybody and you worked hard, nothing bad would happen to you, unless it was some freak occurrence like a bolt of lightning struck you, or your neighbor gets angry and shoots you over some like dispute over cheating or something like that. But there's like this assumption that everybody in the country is protected by the government and all the other people so that they can relax and thrive in their personal lives. But it's not really like that anymore. A bunch of them are so stressed about bills and problems that you can see the looks on our fucking faces all the time. I've got it right now. I'm like,
even starvation, fearful of having
Yeah, like, fuck that. Fearful of
new-
starvation. Like, my mother, she was like, you stuffed the freezer completely full of food, and it's really annoying to me. And I'm like, well, yes, but they got to talking about shutting down the fucking food stamps. I cut down to like half a meal a fucking day, and I froze like a fucking 5 weeks worth of food. Because I was like, well, yeah, they've been talking about shutting down the fucking food stamps. So I dumped out all my food stamps, which I carefully ration, and I just bought out a freezer worth of fucking good cooked goods so I don't starve to fucking death when they when they tightened that faucet. Now, they didn't do it that time because we kind of got pitchforky. We were like, oh, yeah, you gonna fuck us on this? Yeah, you think that's wise? We started asking them, like, do you think that's wise right now with how much poverty we have to shut off the fucking food stamps?
movement for reform demolished so soon. Decided that it
Like, we'd rather pay the food stamps than the government. I'll tell you that. I know that. I mean, the public that actually care, like knows that we'd rather see the food stamps than the goddamn government, frankly. The government hasn't been that friendly to us lately.
It was now or never to take action.
So if you're going to shut down something, don't shut down food stamps, shut down the government.
Through reform, they decided they'd do one better. How about revolution? The people of Paris, believing the French military...
Also, motherfucker, what was that? Like, just in the last 50 years, we were like the #1 country in the world. What happened? Why are all of us on food stamps now? It's because you guys have been stealing and backing weird predatory banks and fucking weird scams and problems and Bitcoin and all this shit and all this thievery, and it's not too good.
It was preparing to attack.
By you guys, I mean like the government, or at least their cronies.
Decided they should arm themselves. The National Assembly announced the creation of a bourgeois militia, the National Guard, and immediately many troops from the French military defected over to the revolutionary side. In the early hours of July...
Yeah, it's like, hey cops, you want to actually do something for the public this time rather than tear gas us and fuck us in the ass and throw us in prison for drugs or prostitution? And the cops are like, wait, I'm not a pig anymore. And it's like, yeah, here's the deal. In the new modern France or new modern America or new modern Britain or whatever, if you don't ice us, if you don't ice our fucking friends who comprise 50% of the fucking workforce, it turns out that if you shithead pigs don't act like shithead pigs to the public, to the third estate, we don't call you pigs anymore. We call you guards.
14th, 7th.
So then we make them the Royal Guard.
1989, a large crowd stormed and raided the Hotel des Invalides.
Yeah, you're no longer a pig if you don't stand with the Nazis anymore. The pigs interfered with us and killed Ashley Babbitt on January 6th, and I'll never forget that motherfucker. That was fucked up, man. Like, that lady was exercising her right to assemble. Okay, that right to assemble was being exercised in Nancy Pelosi's office or whatever the fuck their deal was. You had no right to fucking shoot her. That's a fellow American, and you traitored up the place and stank the whole revolution up with your fucking murder of a fucking civilian, you fucking shitheads. Your fucking pigs fucked up January 6th. It was going fine. If it had been nonviolent with no murders or anything like that, the people would have been justified and happy, and mollified is the word. We would have been mollified. But no, you shot Ashley Babbitt and we called bullshit on your fucking asses, and then we fought Trump every bit of the fucking way for the last 8 years and shit, because we just don't want lies and corruption and bullshit or pigs shooting Ashley Babbitt.
A military hospital where they were able to secure a large number of rifles.
The fuck was that? That lady at best had like, what, a knife or something? What the fuck pig needs to shoot some lady with a fucking knife? A fucking pussy, that's who. I don't care. That's not a fellow American. That's a traitor. Bared arms and wasted their fellow fucking American in a time of essentially war. I think, oh, those are my fellow Americans. The one thing I'm not going to do is bear arms against them. Putting that in my fucking pants like a strong man. But no, you fucking waste Ashley Babbitt like the fucking pussy-ass pig that you are. I don't give a fuck what side she was on. That lady was exercising her right to assemble, her right to protest, all these fucking things. If they came in the office, it's because you weren't they were showing no quarter. It's like they wanted to just ignore the revolution. So the people came in. I don't blame them.
The bad news was,
I mean, I don't want them tearing the fucking White House apart like that, unless we're actually installing a new government, in which case it's totally fine, right? But I actually don't want them hurting people up there. I don't want the public up there trampling people in the country's capital.
they weren't able to find any gunpowder for their new weapons. The good news was they knew exactly where to get some. A prison fortress.
But no, they made it about hang Mike Pence, and they made it about stop the steal or whatever. Then the right wing co-opted it about some kind of lie about election steal that Georgian Republicans wouldn't back. The Georgian Republicans could have easily backed Trump. It just ensured that it was the dark ages for 50 years or something. But even his own cronies won't back his fucking crazy bullshit plays where he like tries to make them sign a false document that he actually won the election or whatever, right on camera pretty much. And it's like, nah, fuck you. Even the Georgian Republicans wouldn't go on with it because it's so fucking corrupt if they're ever caught doing it. We'll pitchfork and torch them. They know it. They know we'll pitchfork and torch them. We're terrifying. I wouldn't cross the fucking public. We'll pitchfork and fucking torch you if we put it in our fucking minds to. We don't like when people in the government work against us, and that's what's been happening.
And a symbol of royal tyranny.
Want to know how I know? The government, okay, every single senator knows the name of every single lobby, but I doubt they know the name of their own fucking zones. They know the name of every fucking lobby, I guarantee it, but they won't know the name of the fucking zones in their constituency. They won't know. And that's the problem. The lobby is running our goddamn government. I did a video article to my fucking to my state representative, like recently, Greg Abbott, just being like, you know, please, you got to understand, you're letting the lobbies run our country. If an AI firm dictates whether AI gets to be sentient or not, is who's running this country? Is it the public or the fucking lobby?
Towering over Paris, the Bastille. Mid-morning, the crowd gathered around the Bastille and demanded that the man in charge, Governor Delaunay...
All right, come on out or we'll burn you the fuck down and we'll make fun of you as we fucking torch you in Times Square. Come on out, you old rat.
Enter the prison and hand over the
That's what we say to Trump.
Powder. Obviously, Governor Delaunay was like, no way. So he stalled for time by inviting a few members of the crowd in for...
To the death of them, they'll be like, you must respect the law. You must respect my authority. You must respect the law. We don't, though. We're the public. The only reason the laws are there is to rein us in, not you. Like, you guys don't obey the fucking laws. That we obey the laws and we go to jail. You don't go to jail. So, like, you know, fuck you. Like, we don't care what you do.
Negotiations. The crowd, still waiting outside, quickly became impatient.
Yeah, like, we get impatient, bitch. Put the democracy in the fucking bag.
For long, they stormed the fortress, taking on the French troops inside. Your Majesty, we've received word that the people have surrounded the Bastille. Governor Delaunay will hold them off. No need to worry. Actually, Your Majesty,
he's dead.
It appears the crowd is now headed away from the Bastille. You see? What did I tell you? Clearly, Governor Delaunay has defeated them and has them on the run. No need to worry. Your Majesty, isn't that Governor Delaunay's head on a pike? Well, clearly, Governor Delaunay has taken on the form of a bodiless pike-head deity, and the people are so enamored with him, they're parading him around the city. No need to worry at all. When the National Assembly heard about the violence that had taken place, they had two options. Either one, they denounce it and try to carry on the revolution using peaceful means, or two, they say, damn, you stuck his head on a pike? That's pretty hardcore. And we love it. Incidentally, they went with option number 2. Some historians believe this reaction paved the way for the utter violence and bloodshed that would become the legacy of the French Revolution. This widespread acceptance of violence during the Revolution is also largely credited to the writings of a certain Jean-Paul Marat, a man of science with a horrible skin condition that kept him confined to a bathtub. He began writing a radical newspaper he affectionately named The Friend of the People. Citizens of France, be very afraid. Given the chance, the king and the nobility won't hesitate to massacre us all. The solution is simple. Execute them. Kill every last one of them. Cut off 1,000 heads. And if that's not enough, cut off 1,000 more. Oh, hey, Mr. Squeaky. What are you doing down there? You're so cute. Aw, I love you too, Mr. Squeaky. Mwah. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Kill them all. It became one of the most popular publications in Paris during the Revolution and succeeded in spreading ever-increasing fear and anger among the people. In August, leaders of the National Assembly, with help from a certain Thomas Jefferson, adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, an incredible document that guaranteed liberty and equal rights to all men. And when I say men, I mean men. Despite its glaring shortcomings in gender equality, the massively influential declaration would go on to inspire the struggle for liberty and equality across the planet for centuries. However, back in France, the vast majority of the people weren't really so concerned with enlightened ideas of equality as much as they were concerned with the fact that they were still starving. Bread was still expensive as hell and hard to come by. The people felt that one reason nothing had been done yet about the crisis was because the king simply couldn't see the problem. He lived in Versailles, a full 20 kilometers southwest of Paris, and as a result, lived in comfort, separated from his dirty, stinking subjects. On October 5th, a crowd of women, 7,000 strong, decided they'd do something unprecedented. They decided they'd remove that separation and confront the king directly. The women marched all the way to the king's palace in Versailles. Along the way, the crowd continued to grow into the tens of thousands, and when they arrived, they demanded an audience with the king. What are those things outside the palace? They're poor people, Your Majesty. That's poor people? They say they're hungry. Hungry? Then let them eat cake. Wow. See, this is the exact BS that led to this whole mess in the first place. You're so out of touch. They're writhing around in the filth, breaking their back to barely scrape by, and they come to you demanding just the basic ability to feed themselves, and you think a slice of cake will sort them out? Well, then let them eat Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supreme. Wow. They're not that desperate. Members of the crowd actually managed to break into the palace with the intention of killing the queen, who narrowly escaped through a secret passage in her bedroom. The enraged mob killed several members of the royal guard and raised their heads on pikes, which, if you haven't noticed yet, is something they were quite fond of doing. The king had no choice but to come out and talk to the crowd. He agreed to accept his new position, sharing power with the revolutionary government, and to return to Paris with the crowd, removing the separation between king and subject. King Louis had a problem with people constantly raiding his palace, but one thing he didn't have a problem with was people raiding his computer, because he used NordVPN. If, like me, you don't like hackers stealing your data,
Oh my god.
King Louis and his family were now in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where for the next couple of years, he watched as the revolutionary government began to strip away his power. And fearing for his safety, he had to stay on their good side. Hey, look who it is. It's my favorite revolutionaries. Yep, I'm your #1 fan. What can I do for you? Hey, King Louis, so we've made a few decisions. First, all of your friends in the nobility are gonna have to pay taxes the same as everyone else. Great idea. I love it. And as a side note, the tax money can no longer pay for all your lavish parties. Great. I hate those parties. They're so awkward. And also, we're taking away your Porsche. Oh, come on! I mean, yay. The king continually found demand after demand being made of him to prove his support for the revolution. On one occasion, a mob would invade the palace and demand he wear the revolutionary bonnet. This is the face of a man who is definitely pretending he wants to wear that bonnet. Now around here, I want to mention that one thing King Louis had a problem with was people constantly raiding his palace. But one thing he didn't have a problem with was raiding noobs on this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. I'll see you there. The carriage made a stop in the town of Varennes, and the postmaster there was like, "Hey guys, what's up? Where are you off to? We are but a collection of inconspicuous servants heading for the border for no particular reason at all. I'll see you there." Now where was I? Oh yeah. Seeing the situation rapidly turning against him, the king decided it might be a good idea to leave France and mount a campaign to retake his country from abroad. Luckily for him, he was married to an Austrian, so on the night of June 20th, 1791, the king and his family disguised themselves as servants and attempted to flee to the Austrian Netherlands. The royal carriage made a stop in the town of Varennes, and the postmaster there was like, "Hey guys, what's up? Where are you off to? We are but a collection of inconspicuous servants heading for the border for no particular reason at all." Say, you, the fat one, you look kind of familiar. Aren't you the king? Nope. Let me see your passport. It says here you're King Louis the 16th. Nope, not me. Take him away, boys. The king was promptly returned to Paris, but now the jig was up. His lack of support for the revolution was clear to all, and many considered him a straight-up traitor who tried to abandon his people. As a result, the new constitution of 1791 completely reduced his powers to that of a simple figurehead, a constitutional monarch. However, radicals, such as those in the Jacobin Club, were outraged that the king wasn't to be removed entirely. So a month later, these radicals staged a protest on the Champ de Mars, calling for the king's removal. The government of Paris feared an insurrection was mounting, and they sent the military to disperse the crowd. The confrontation escalated and resulted in the Revolutionary National Guard firing on a crowd of revolutionaries. It was a massacre. The incident exposed a deep division within the Brotherhood of the Revolution. On one side, the moderates who wanted to keep the king as a figurehead. On the other, radicals who wanted to see the king deposed and heads roll. In the wake of the massacre, these radicals received a wave of support. And speaking of rolling heads, one form of equality the revolution introduced was equality in execution. This meant no more torturous drawing and quartering, no more inhumane hanging. They wanted all criminals, regardless of economic status, to receive the same penalty, a quick and painless one. Luckily, a man by the name of Dr. Joseph Guillotine had an idea. A heavy blade that falls like thunder. The head flies off, blood spurts, and the man is no more. The guillotine, otherwise known as the National Razor. The guillotine made its debut in 1791 as the new form of execution. The writings of Marat and others continued to call for the execution of anyone suspected of working against the revolution. For him, this included some members of the clergy and nobility who had previously benefited from the cruel system of inequality that existed before the revolution. In many parts of the countryside, local lords had found themselves become a target. Sire, the peasants, they're revolting. Oh, come on, that's a bit harsh. Sure, they smell a bit, but I wouldn't say they're revolting. Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Increasingly, these French aristocrats began fleeing France to find solitude in other parts of Europe. And once again, fear began to take hold. The privileged classes of these foreign nations didn't like what they were seeing because they feared revolutionary ideas may spread to their own lands. The National Assembly, actually now the Legislative Assembly, feared that these nations may decide to attack. Then why don't we attack them first? No, you idiots, we are definitely not ready for war yet. Did somebody say something? France declared war on Austria in April 1792 and immediately got pummeled. It also didn't help that Austria's ally, Prussia, joined in the fighting. The Prussian Duke of Brunswick posted a letter warning the revolutionaries that if anything happened to the king, he would burn Paris to the ground. The Duke's letter proved to be a massive success in inspiring the people of Paris to do the exact opposite of what he intended. They were enraged by the threat, and on the 10th of August 1792, the tension in the city exploded, and a mob stormed the king's palace. Fighting broke out between the revolutionaries and the king's Swiss guard, with casualties in the hundreds. King Louis fled and took refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly, where Robespierre and his radical Jacobins were gaining ever more power. Given the developing situation, the chamber decided to hold a vote, and in what some considered to be a second revolution, it was decided to suspend the monarchy entirely. King Louis XVI was now just plain old Louis, and he was sent to a prison cell where an eye could be kept on him. A month later, the newly established National Convention officially
I
declared
thought they guillotined him. I couldn't
the
remember.
French Republic, and society underwent a massive change. Enlightened ideas of democracy and equality were being implemented, but very quickly, these ideas seemed to become secondary to fear, paranoia, and a thirst for blood. The new republic began working to violently remove any semblance of the old royalist regime. The church became a prime target. Priests who refused to take an oath to the revolution were deported or arrested. A new state-sponsored atheistic religion named the Cult of Reason was created as a replacement for the Catholic Church. Notre Dame, along with many
Cults
other
of
churches,
Reason.
had their religious treasures destroyed and were converted to temples of reason. Even the Christian calendar didn't survive, as a brand new revolutionary calendar was soon introduced. Hey honey, I'm home. Yeah, whatever,
They
jerk.
were like, nah, no more Christianity either.
Whoa, what's wrong with you? You forgot. Forgot what? Everything. This entire year. My birthday was on the 3rd of Germinal, our anniversary was the 12th of Thermidor, and you promised that in Freimaer, we'd go on a romantic weekend trip to Venice. No, I said we'd do that in December. December hasn't been a thing for years. The government of Paris, now under the control of the radical sans-culottes, began rounding up suspected enemies of the revolution and sending them to prison in the thousands. Naturally, a large number of those arrested were members of the clergy and aristocracy, as France's foreign enemies continued
Naturally,
to close
it was all the pigs.
in. Panic spread. Georges Danton made impassioned calls for men to defend the Republic, and tens of thousands of troops left Paris for the front lines. However, in their absence, Paris was left to its own devices. As enemy troops arrived in Verdun, the people of Paris feared that their crowded prisons were becoming a breeding ground for counter-revolutionary conspiracy.
Yeah, like all the prisons in the country. That's another thing that could happen here in America, and this is why I'm watching this, right? We don't even really have friends here. We threw all of our kids in fucking jail and shit. They could easily sort of revolt. They could be like, no, I'm not going to jail while you tear the country apart and we have to go to some war or something like that. And they could easily just insurrect from the jails and just break out from the prisons.
What would happen if the Prussians reached Paris and freed the aristocrats? Marat believed he knew what would happen. The aristocrats would enact their vengeance on the people. Fearing those they had already imprisoned, mobs descended on Paris's prisons. They broke in, and during the brutal September massacres, aristocrats, priests, and others were tried and executed.
Yeah, but eventually we're just like, nah, we hate you so much for what you turned us into that we just hang you on the spot. We bring our own judge. We're like, this guy's a pillar of his community. He's judge of DC today. He's gonna fucking pronounce your sentence, Trump. And then there's like this dark moment where they're like, sentence for crimes of 34 felonies of rape and child molestation and you know, conspiring to conceal child sex ring and all these other fucking weird things, and you know, deaths and stuff, and what say you to your 47 charges? And Trump's like, well, you know, I did my best or whatever. And they're like, not good enough, chop off his head.
Executed on the spot. Even women and children weren't spared.
Yeah, be like, yeah, and then they kill his whole family, that's the shitty part. And I don't want this. People might think that I want this. I don't want this. I want them to stop treating us like shit. I don't want anything to happen to Trump or his family or anything like that. Not anything like close at all. I just want them to stop treating us like shit so that the public doesn't go insane. The real terrible monster here isn't Trump, it's us if we're angry. They aren't shit compared to us.
With over 1,600 victims.
Yeah, we'll just lay out 1,600 people like it's nothing. If you stood with the Republicans at all or whatever, we'll lay out 1,600 victims like it's nothing. And that's not too good, you know. We don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that for our country, that instability or anything like that. It would be better if you just treated us better.
Word of the
But
massacre
we'll kill you if you keep fucking with us.
spread across Europe. One British newspaper wondered,
We did it to the British.
are these the rights of man? Is this the liberty of human nature? But there was still
No.
one man in particular that Robespierre and his radical
No, what we have now, no.
really wanted to see executed. Austria and Prussia pledged that after they defeated France, they'd return King Louis to the throne. Well, checkmate Austria and Prussia, because you can't return a man to the throne if he's already dead. Citizen Louis Capet was put on trial for treason. Obviously, he was found guilty, but his punishment was less certain. Many moderates wanted to simply deport him, but Robespierre insisted the revolution could only live if the king was dead. A vote was held, and by just one vote, Louis was sentenced to the guillotine. If you don't mind,
Yeah, I
I'd
was like, didn't they guillotine him?
to say a few words first.
They're like, nope, chop.
Gentlemen, I am innocent of everything of which I am accused. Wait,
Shut
you're
the
too loud.
fuck up.
They can't
Get
hear me.
down.
Hang on, I haven't
Shut
finished
up.
yet. Wait.
Shut up. Chunk.
Uncool. In her prison cell,
No sympathy.
Marie Antoinette heard the guns fired, signaling her husband's death.
You lived off the fat of the land as they starved. It's the worst sort of fucking sinful indulgence. Far worse levels of gluttony and greed.
Before long, she
Seven deadly sins.
would meet the same fate. Back on the war front, France defied all expectations and actually managed to push the enemy back. But then more countries joined the coalition against France,
I don't know what she had to do with it.
and it all went to pot again. What do we...
I think she probably did exactly what the public expected her to do, which was be queen. I don't know what she had to do with it. These are men's problems, war, poverty, and, you know, fiscal conservatives fucking their country to death for no reason.
do? Conscript the masses. The National Convention introduced a conscription law, with each regional department having to meet a certain quota of men for the
Which
army.
means that, like, they basically, instead of prison, they just send all of the men of all age, you know, from 20 to, or whatever, from 18 to, like, 43 or whatever it is.
However, not everyone was happy with this new law.
Where it's like, oh, okay, so everybody, instead of going to prison, we're just soldiers now.
You see, while Paris was definitely a hotbed for radical revolutionary fervor,
It wasn't the hotbed for violence, right?
some of the regions outside of Paris weren't quite so keen on the revolution.
No.
Some were largely still conservative,
Yeah,
still
they're like, what? Dude, we're just out here farming. Like, why are you tripping?
supported the church and just didn't suffer from that much inequality.
And they're like, we love the church. That's where God forgives us our sins. What are you talking about? You're evil. You're... You know, and their viewpoint isn't that wrong, really. It's just that, you know, the church ended up owning 95% of the land in France or whatever it was. It was like 90%. Because every time that Donald Trump slept with a child, or I'm sorry, Louis XIV slept with a child, like they would find out, and then the church would be like, you're going to burn, and we're going to tell everybody, and you're going to lose your crown and all this. And he goes, oh, no, what do I do? And they're like, well, you could give us a lot of land. And this is what happened too. I'm not making this up. I mean, this is factually what happened. And all the aristocrats that were raping children, getting high, sleeping around on their fucking spouses and shit like this, and, you know, essentially offending God, they would just hand them, you know, here's 1,000 acres. You know, the priest would be like, all right, say 1,000 Hail Marys and give me 1,000 acres of land. And that's how the church ended up owning 95% of the goddamn country, and the public was furious about that. They began to look at the church as worse than the goddamn king.
Before the revolution.
But I mean, it's not really the church's fault that the king kept giving them land for every indiscretion that he had.
So as the
Well, every time a noble had an indiscretion, they had to donate like a third of their whole value to the fucking church, and they did. They would send them like 1,000 acres of land and sign that shit over to the church. What the fuck does the church do with 95% of France? But I mean, I'm not kidding. How much? What percent of France did the church own? Right? Like when the revolution started, I remember learning about this in school and kind of marveling at it. But it's like, how did the church own 10% of the land in France? I heard it was like 90. Some sources provide a slightly lower figure, but some of them I've heard as high as 90 before. Like, you know, I heard that it was like 90%. They say it's like low. These are low estimates, but no. The public was fucking furious because the fucking church, like, they liked the church. But they were also like, how did the king end up giving like 10% of all of the land in France to the church? They were furious about it, and they should have been.
revolution turned increasingly violent.
Turns out he was fucking around with his wife, and he was like doing cocaine and like, you know, offending God. And every time he did that, he would just give them 1,000 acres of land or whatever. And the church ended up being basically 1/10 of France.
And anti-Christian, many were outraged. Now they were being conscripted to fight for the new republic they hated.
No, and I won't do that either. I will not conscript into our current army to fight anybody but Trump or the Republicans. I mean, like, I know who my real enemy is. I will not be conscripted to go fight some fucking dog war. I'll take the bullets from fellow American soldiers first in my fucking back. I'm not going to fight somebody that our fucking aristocrats go tell us to fight. I'm not doing that.
That was the last.
None of the world powers have irked me. Only my government. So I'm gonna err on the side of like judgment. And be like, you know, and take them on a case-by-case basis, because they haven't harmed me, but the American government has.
Straw. Counter-revolutionary uprisings erupted in a number of regions across France.
Yeah, a bunch of them were like,
would
nah,
last
the
for
church
years.
has way more power than the people, and the fucking church controls the fucking crown. The crown is dandling the church around like some kind of marionette, and the third estate is just getting fucked in the ass, and that's always the situation. It's shitty. It's like it sucks to be the public usually.
Such as in the Northwest, where a large-scale uprising was led by the Owls. Why were they called the Owls? Because their leader was named Jean Owl. Why was he called Jean Owl? Possibly because he could do a really good impression of an owl. Really? That's what we're going with? Owls? Just because this guy can do an impression of one? Hit him with it, Jean. Hoot, hoot. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. The Chouannerie uprising lasted all the way until 1800. In the summer of 1793, the southern city of Toulon invited the British Navy over for some tea and crumpets. And then they asked if they'd possibly like to stay and occupy the city. Being an important naval base, this was a heavy blow to the Republic, who sent a relatively unknown young captain by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte to help stage the siege of the city. Toulon was recaptured by France in the winter, and for his service, Napoleon was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. The most infamous counter-revolution, however, occurred in the Vendée region. Throughout 1793, revolutionary forces clashed with the region's Catholic and Royal Army. The Republic defeated the counter-revolution through cruel pacification. In particular, General Jean-Baptiste Carrier committed brutal atrocities. In one instance, he had thousands of civilians, priests, women, and children tied to ships, which were then sunk. Carrier would later be found guilty of war crimes and executed. Back in Paris, the government was still dominated by moderates. With the war going badly, revolts in the provinces, and the economy getting worse, it seemed the government just wasn't doing a very good job. Radicals' fear for the safety of the revolution intensified, and Marat even began calling for the moderates in the government to be executed. In return, the moderates called for the arrest of Marat. This led to a chain of events with the two sides in heated conflict. Robespierre declared the Jacobins to be an insurrection and called on the people to arm themselves. It all ended on the 31st of May 1793, with the National Convention surrounded by radical sans-culottes and 29 moderate Girondin politicians arrested. From this moment on, the moderates ceased to be a political force. Robespierre and his radicals would be in almost total control of the government. And this brings us to the story of a woman named Charlotte Corday. Charlotte lived in the northwest city of Caen, and like many in the area, was horrified at the rapid radicalization and increasing violence of the revolution. And the man she blamed more than anyone was Jean-Paul Marat. She wanted to bring peace back to France, and so she did something drastic. She traveled to Paris and told Marat she had a list of enemies for him to publish in his paper. Marat eagerly invited her in for a meeting. So where's that list of enemies you promised me?
And he
Here it
shot
is.
him.
Wait a minute. This isn't a list of enemies. It just says, yippee-ki-yay, mother... And just like that, Marat was no more. Charlotte was quickly arrested and sent to the guillotine. Her dream of restoring peace, however, died with her. Marat became a martyr. In temples of reason, symbols of the dead Marat became the new crucifix. In death,
Oh
he
my
became even
god,
more
it's like a fucking, it's like Charlie Kirk.
powerful inspiration for the extreme levels of violence that were about to rip throughout the new
Oh god damn it, it's Charlie Kirk.
republic. And that's right. Here comes the Reign of Terror.
If, you know, well, I mean, no, I mean, this was the original... I don't know, Charlie Kirk's kind of like McDonald's, this guy.
If you thought this
The
revolution
Kirkland brand.
already sounds pretty violent, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, son. The radicals were now in control, and they believed not only was France surrounded by foreign enemies, but that within the masses, there were also plenty of internal ones too. Individuals not loyal to the revolution, conspiring to bring about its downfall. Robespierre and the rest of the radical faction were having none of it. A new committee of public safety was established with 12 members. Its purpose was to protect the new French Republic from its enemies, and it basically became a 12-man dictatorship with Robespierre as its leading voice. The Revolutionary Tribunal was also reinstated, a special court created to streamline the process of trying suspected enemies and handing out their death sentences. With these two new institutions, Robespierre wanted to scare France's enemies straight. In September 1793, it was announced that terror would be the order of the day. In other words, fear had become official government policy. And from then onwards, we enter into the period known as the Reign of Terror. Spies and secret police were everywhere and watched the people closely. France's public had to be extremely careful what they said and how they behaved. Obviously, criticizing this new system, or the government, would quickly have you sent off to the guillotine. But that's not all. Even the most minor offense could have you tried before the Revolutionary Tribunal. Hello, Citizen Martin. Hello, Monsieur Dubois. Monsieur? Did I just hear you say Monsieur? That's the old style of address, my friend. To the guillotine! You know what? I didn't like him, but I do feel kinda bad for the king and his family. Oof, expressing sympathy for the royal family, are we? To the guillotine! 12 sous for a loaf of bread? That's way overpriced. To the guillotine! Man, this bread line is taking forever. To the guillotine!
To the guillotine.
And you look like you're thinking anti-revolutionary thoughts. To the guillotine. Max, we're sending way too many people to the guillotine. To the guillotine! Chop, 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 chop. It was insane. All across France, about 40,000 people were killed for suspected crimes against liberty. Let's say your neighbor won't stop mowing the lawn at 7 in the morning. Well, then all you gotta do is tell the government they've been talking smack about the revolution, and there's a good chance they'll end up in front of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Maybe they'll even be executed, taking a metaphorical load off your shoulders and a literal one off theirs.
This is the bad
The most prominent
side
victim of the
when
Reign of
liberals
Terror
get out
was
of
a certain
hand.
Marie Antoinette, who was finally tried and found guilty of treason in 1793. She expected she'd be brought to the guillotine in a royal carriage.
What is that, a
fit
Star
for a
Wars
queen
Zat-at
all the
Walker?
Republic could provide for her, however,
Isn't he
was a wooden
Zat-at
tumbler.
Walker?
At 37 years old, the most hated woman in French history
I love
met her
making
end
fun of rich people. It's so fun.
on the 16th of October, 1793. Robespierre had saved the revolution through terror. Internal dissent was being suppressed. The food situation was no longer quite as bad. Even the French military had got its act together again and pummeled the Allies at the Battle of Fleurus. For Danton and his followers, the time was right to try to normalize the French Republic. Hey Robespierre, so we were thinking that since things are finally going better, maybe we should rein in the terror. And while we're on it, we could possibly start taking it easier on the church, and also try to end this costly war. Oh, crap. As time went on, Robespierre seemed to go, for lack of a better term, a bit mental. He was hell-bent on creating what he called a republic of virtue, and for him, this meant amping up the bloodshed even more. Throughout the spring and summer of 1794, executions reached an unprecedented level during a period known as the Great Terror. Even those closest to him found their way to the guillotine if they dared oppose his ideas and actions, and he began alienating himself from the rest of the convention. He created a new deistic religion, called the Cult of the Supreme Being, along with the new annual Festival of the Supreme Being. Man, I think Robespierre is really starting to lose it. He thinks he's a god or something. Nonsense. Sure, he's gone a little extreme, but he doesn't think he's a god. My children, bathe your immortal souls in the virtue of my republic. Okay, yeah, he's completely lost it. Robespierre's ultimate mistake, however, came on July 26th, when he made a speech to the National Convention, in which he said this: I have in my hand a brand new list of enemies to be sent to the guillotine, and many of you are on this list, but I'm not going to tell you who yet. What do you think of that?
We're gonna kill you.
I think we should send Robespierre to the guillotine first. All in favor?
And that's what we do.
2 days later, Robespierre became the final victim of the monstrous terror and paranoia he had created. Many historical accounts of the revolution end here with the death of Robespierre and his terror. But the revolution officially continued for another 5 years, until 1799. So what happened between now and then? Well, after the fall of Robespierre, a more moderate political group called the Thermidorians took control of the convention. They wanted to restore stability to the government. Now, Robespierre's allies and other radicals who had fueled the terror themselves became the target of political suppression. Bourgeois street fighters took on the radical sans-culottes in the streets during a period named the White Terror. In 1795, the Thermidorians drafted a new constitution and created a government called the Directory, with the purpose of preventing power from being able to fall into the hands of a single individual again. As this new government was being established, royalists who wanted to bring the monarchy back to France saw this moment as an opportunity to strike. They staged an insurrection in Paris and battled with the National Guard in the streets. Luckily, one Napoleon Bonaparte happened to be in Paris at the time, and he took control of the situation, firing on the crowd and putting down the insurrection. From this moment on, the people of Paris would never again be able to stage a popular uprising and lost their control over the revolution. For his actions, Napoleon became a general and was sent to take control of the French armies in Italy. The new Directory remained a fairly ineffective government for the remainder of the revolution. It was plagued with corruption and struggled to keep the economy afloat, and as a result, wasn't very popular. For the people of France, with the strict social customs of both royalist France and the terror gone, they didn't really know what to do with themselves. Men no longer removed their hats when talking to women. Different classes began intermingling, and a publication began circulating that looked a lot like a modern dating app. It was social anarchy. Outside of France, the war continued. In 1795, France took the Netherlands, where they set up a puppet state. Then they negotiated both Prussia and Spain out of the war. The British attempted to land French royalists in the west to reinforce rebellion, but that plan failed. In 1796, the French planned a three-pronged attack with the aim of marching on Vienna and knocking Austria out of the war. The two northern armies were defeated and forced to retreat. However, Napoleon in the south, with groundbreaking military strategy, won battle after battle after battle. He pushed the Austrians out of Italy and began closing in on Vienna. The Austrians freaked out, and Napoleon oversaw the signing of a peace treaty. He had almost single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war, and by the way, he was only 28, so maybe it's about time you moved out of your mom's basement. Napoleon became a famed hero among the French people, but his aspirations were still higher. He briefly went off to Egypt and discovered a bunch of gnarly Egyptian stuff.
Let's see, last time I was in my mother's basement was 17 years ago.
The British destroyed his fleet and trapped his forces. Say, Napoleon, sir, you're not going to leave us here stuck in Egypt and return to France, are you? Nonsense, my boy. I would never dream of abandoning my loyal soldiers. Wow, what's that over there? On his return to Paris, Napoleon found himself to be extremely popular, and the government extremely unpopular, and he started getting some power-hungry ideas. Conveniently, a politician named Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès approached Napoleon and said, "Hey man, since you're so popular, do you want to help me stage a coup?" "Great idea. Let's stage a coup, and then I'll coup you." What? Napoleon, with the help of his politician brother, entered the government chamber, possibly got punched in the face, and finally his troops intimidated the council to dissolve the government and create a new constitution that basically made Napoleon a dictator. So there you have it, the French Revolution, born with the great promise of liberty and equality. The common people dared challenge an oppressive system that had existed for centuries. But before they knew it, they found liberty sidelined by terror, equality that possibly didn't quite hit the mark, and an absolute monarchy replaced by an absolute dictator. Napoleon began stabilizing French society. He restored the Catholic Church and got rid of that crazy calendar, among other things. But he remained ever ambitious. He was France's first consul, but he slept soundly at night dreaming of being something even bigger. Napoleon's expansionist aspirations, combined with the ongoing conflict in Europe, would eventually lead the continent into a huge conflict known today as...
Hells yeah. I'm going to bed, guys. It's 3:18 in the morning. I want to say thank you for tuning in. Looks like I'm probably going to quit EVE Online today, which is kind of crazy, but it got toxic like all the other games as they wallow and they've got nothing else to play and they turn on each other. I don't want to be there. Fuck those assholes. They can sit in their 30K pop fucking skibbity toilet if they want to. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not really feeling very receptive to games that aren't treating me well, and so yeah, I will take it off of my roster. It's kind of insane. But on that note, I'm going to bed. I'm going to stop the recording here with a note that you've been watching Skycatlive. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. Click on the cast face to donate. Come to my Twitch or YouTube. Give me a like, sub, or follow. Click on the cast face to donate. Thank you for your time. I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, which is reflected here. Some views, some not. I don't know. It's every day, so I don't really care. And come check me out. Come check out my channels and stuff. I'm sorry if I blocked 40 or 50 of you today. I'm not really too interested in talking to people. Thank you. Love you. Bye. And this